Good morning. You've made it to the first day of the college football semifinals. That'll be later on tonight. Looking forward to see who will play in the first side of the championship game. Indiana gets their shot with Oregon tomorrow night. But you've got a pretty good game, Ole Miss in Miami later on tonight. Some good college basketball last night. A little closer in one than I thought it was going to be, but we got it all figured out. Good morning, Kevin Bowen. Good morning, James Boyd. And KB had the Big Ten doubleheader last night. Indiana getting a road win. That was fun to see. And I don't know, was Purdue, quote-unquote, playing with their food in the second half last night? Got a little bit closer down the stretch, but they didn't have too much trouble in winning the game. So
Right, yeah. Betting purposes, yeah, you probably don't love the final results, winning by 8 if you were on that line, but that game was never in doubt whatsoever. I kind of feel this is a unique Thursday morning for us in that, obviously we'll hear from Chris Ballard here coming up at 11 a.m., but I have a feeling, and maybe I'm being a little bit more optimistic than most, but I'm going to guess there is a section of our audience here on this Thursday morning that they've packed the car.
They're good to go.
They've filled up the gas. I don't know, do you do the Nashville side or do you go through like the Knoxville side to get to Atlanta? 65 will be heavily populated with the cream and crimson colored cars here on this Thursday morning. I'd assume maybe some might play with a little bit more fire and leave tomorrow early as well, but I know my in-laws, for example, are making the commute down here this morning, so if you are in your car, safe travels, and I don't know, maybe we can feel the call at some point today from an IU fan heading down to the Peach State to take in what will be the national semifinal coming up tomorrow night on the other side of the bracket.
So are the in-laws going to the game?
They are, yeah. My father-in-law was an IU football season ticket holder for quite a while, so yeah, they're ready to go. Everybody's ready, and again, I'll kind of echo what I said all week. I feel really good about it. And now I'm locked into tonight. I think tonight's more the 50-50 game than tomorrow, to be totally honest with you.
Feels that way. What do you think, James?
That's fair. I saw that Fernando Mendoza was saying in his media session, we're still underdogs. We're approaching this like underdogs. And I think that they believe that, but reading that, I was like, yeah, you're not underdogs.
You want to dial up the city of sin and see if you're an underdog or not?
Not at all, but I appreciate the mentality. I had somebody screenshot and send me the rankings as far as like how many 5-star recruits they had and all of that. But look, man, I didn't say that as a slight to Fernando Mendoza, but I do think athletes lie to themselves and to the public about those things because that's just how they're wired. But in reality, you are not an underdog at all. You have been the best team in college football all year. And I say that not tongue-in-cheek. I say that with a lot of respect. I mean, every team that you faced, you've handled. You're the last team that's undefeated. And, again, being the Illinois guy, didn't take me long to get convinced.
Yeah, that's kind of where it all really started to pick up steam and rolling is that Illinois game. You had the first 4 games where people were like, oh, what kind of schedule is this? What are they doing? Well, apparently Kurt Signetti knew exactly what he was doing because they come out and they just steamroll Illinois. Kind of got a roll after that. Little scary against Iowa, but they got the win. And then a little scary against Penn State. They got that amazing catch. And it just feels like since that catch at Penn State, it's just steamrolling people.
Well, you have to mention the game at Oregon. I mean, that's true. That was truly the one that was circled. If I remember correctly, I want to say both teams were coming off their bye weeks as well. The anticipation of that game. I think game day was out in Eugene.
But what do they do? What do they do with that Oregon game if they don't win at Penn State? I guess is my question.
Sure, yeah, but still, I mean, I think Oregon it tops the list. And yeah, when you have a course of a 12-game season, you play in one of the best conferences, if not the best in the entire land. Yeah, you're going to have moments where Iowa, gives you a challenge. Obviously, Penn State as well. So 3.5-point spreads. Last I checked, both these games. So Miami favored over Ole Miss tonight. Again, that is out in the Fiesta Bowl there in Arizona. And then tomorrow night, Indiana, still a 3.5-point favorite over the Ducks.
Yeah. Can we just talk about Lamar Wilkerson a little bit last night? In the second half against Maryland, he went on a personal 16-4 run. Did you see that, Kevin? 16 points in a row.
He's done this a couple times this season where he is like the microwave heater. And, I said earlier in the week, I don't know what necessarily March will look like for Indiana. I want to say if you look at some of the brackets right now, they're on the right side of the bubble, but not significantly.
Yeah, I saw them this morning. The Athletic had them projected as a first 4 game.
Yeah, so again, I think so far they've done a decent job. Last night, their first 2 road win, but they have so much offensive firepower that I do think they will pluck some upsets here, certainly in the Big Ten. And, obviously we'll see what happens as you get into March. But, last night, and Maryland stinks, and they're without their best player. But, Tucker DeVries has, 5 points in the game, and you still are in full control the entire second half. Wilkerson certainly had the heater, and I thought Joe Dirt, the point guard, was outstanding. He continues to make plays on both ends of the floor.
Yep, and they struggled a little bit. Watching, they didn't. I think they were 2 for 12 in the first half for 3-point range, if I recall.
Am I
correctly.
allowed to call him Joe Dirt, or is that not allowed?
You can do whatever you want. You want him to get that. You want to get that rolling and just make that.
Do you
a
think
thing?
he takes that as a compliment? Connor Enright.
I was going to say, if
That's
he's old enough to know it, the reference, yeah.
Well, there's no chance he is. Probably.
He had a nice game though. But Reed Bailey had a nice game in the first half, especially last night.
Yeah, they need more from Bailey. More from Bailey, more from Alexis. You're going to play teams. Obviously, Maryland missing their best player, best big guy. So, again, true road win. And really for Indiana and Purdue, Indiana's going to start on Saturday with Nebraska. Both these teams are about ready to enter the first Big Ten gauntlet. For Indiana, it'll start Saturday. I want to say Purdue's got Penn State next, and then they'll get into kind of their first big stretch run here. So it's about to get real for your respective Big Ten programs in the state on the hardwood.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. Well, speaking of that, we're going to talk to Thad Matta a little bit later on this morning at 8:30. Butler going to be. Look, they got to get things going in the Big East tournament. They have only had one win in their first several games, and they'll try to get that going. But they've got some talent on there, man. It's fun to watch them. And one of the things they need to do is take care of the basketball better, maybe rebound the ball a little bit better, and stay out of foul trouble. That's been three of the problems they've had early in the season. So we'll talk to Thad Mott about that later on today. But let's go back to a big story today. You guys will go and listen to Chris Ballard speak this morning. Kevin, what do you expect Chris Ballard to say today? What's the tone going to be? What do you think he's likely to come out as a vibe? What do you think he'll be?
Well, tone and vibe, I assume it'll be par for the course in recent years. I mean, I've said this before. I mean, he's certainly not the Michael Jordan of GMs. I think he's the Michael Jordan in press conferences, though. I think he falls on the sword very well. I think his performances can be very dramatic, very emotional. He can cuss and bang his, hands on the table and all of that. And so I assume that will continue to be the tone. It's more the message, which I'm curious about. And again, I've kind of echoed this throughout the week, but, last year at this time, there was a general thought, and you kind of knew two big changes coming for the Colts. You knew the defensive side of the ball was going to need to be changed, and obviously it was with the coordinator, Gus Bradley, fired, Lou Anarumo entering. And then also, when would Ballard ever attack free agency differently? And at this press conference last year, he admitted that his philosophy had been, too frugal in previous years. He needed to change his ways, and obviously his actions last March back that up. So I sit here today, whatever we are, 4 hours before his press conference. That's the unknown for me. Is this simply just, hey, I did everything right last year. We just ran into injuries? Because that was largely the tone I got from Carly Ursay-Gordon earlier in the week. It was first 2 months of the season. As long as the football gods give us good health, we're good. Is there something I'm missing? Is he going to act differently? Is he going to part ways with some key veterans like he's never done? James, that would be kind of where I'm at today, because I don't walk into that press conference with this obvious of, oh yeah, I have a feeling his message will be this, like I might have last year.
Yeah, I'm just curious to know what's the balance there. What's the balance between you giving yourself some credit and some grace for changing your roster construction and then running into a bunch of injuries, but also realizing that your team was not able to win a game for the last 2 months of the season. A 7-game losing streak just can't be ignored or absolved, especially considering that you had a couple of leads in those games and you weren't able to finish. And that's the other thing that, besides saying the sense of urgency is higher for this group, Carly Ursay-Gordon kept saying that they have to finish. So what will you do to help your team finish in the future? But ultimately, we'll build it up because that's our jobs. But at the same time, I look at this similar to how we look at when Carly spoke. Nothing he says will appease this fan base that is fed up with him and sick of the mediocrity. And quite honestly, it's not really worth asking him like why you got a 10th season, because as I've said on these airwaves, no one's going to fire themselves. But yeah, how do you view your tenure and what needs to change? And again, we'll ask all these questions and try to piece through it and get some real, tangible answers from it. But ultimately, man, nobody cared until you put something out there on the field.
Yeah, and I want to drill down on something you said, too. They had opportunities in a couple of those games, Kevin. They get a stop, they win a football game. They never seem to get a stop when they needed to stop in that run.
Indeed, yes.
And so people can talk about the quarterback situation and all that, but defense killed them sometimes.
Yeah, closing defensively is an issue. And now if you look at the free agents, a lot of those defensive ends are free agents. Kwity Paye, Tyquan Lewis, Samson Ebukam. You can, and I would argue you should, see some notable changes with the position group that has largely been his baby since day one. Does it end tonight? Are we finally putting the comma next to Rick Carlisle's name?
It's a team that they've beaten already this year.
A month ago tonight was the last time the Indiana Pacers won a basketball game in Charlotte tonight. Boy, you see that finish in Charlotte last night? You want to talk about heartbreaking? You get them on a back-to-back. They lose on a last-second three. I guess Brandon Miller's iffy. Brandon Miller was supposed to play last night, then didn't play with a knee contusion. So we'll see about his status. So see if the Pacers can get off the ultimate schneid tonight, 7 o'clock down there in Charlotte.
All right, we'll tell you all about everything coming up in a moment. Also, one other thing of note this morning, Caleb Zuver is back in the box this morning and for Mark Dykton today. Mark taking already one of his 430. He's the only guy I know that has 433 days off in a 365-day year.
He might have a longer leash than some people at West 56th Street.
You're the boss, Jeff. Can't you change that? Or
I
don't want you to, by the way, just for the record.
I will say this. He's been very frugal he's been here a long time. He's got a lot of days. He's been very good about a day here, a day there, 2 days here, 1 day there. And then he had not only did he have a week over the holidays, but then the holidays were all in the middle of the week. Then they awarded us all, this is one thing good, the company, they awarded us all 3 extra PTO days. Say OTA
Never give days back.
No, never give days back. All right, we'll tell you what's going on next, but it's good to have you back in, Caleb, today. We're looking forward to it. The phone line's open, the text line open, same number, 239-1070. We'll do that all day long as well, right here on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. Let's start with number 5 Purdue getting a win last night at home against the Washington Huskies, 81-73. And as you pointed out, Kevin, a game not nearly as close as that score might indicate.
No, Purdue was in really full control throughout. I know if you're a bettor than maybe had the spread, you don't love that final result. But, yeah, that was never really in doubt. I think Purdue's depth continues to stand out to me. Last night you get Braden Smith into some foul trouble. Omar Meyer comes in, and, he was really solid for you. Daniel Jacobson, I thought some quality minutes off the bench as well. So one more, I think, in this kind of let's continue to get through things for Purdue, and then they start a hell of a stretch there in the Big Ten. But, yeah, they were in full. up 9-0 and really double-digit lead throughout.
Yeah, they led by as many as 22 at one point in the second half. They kind of let the foot off the gas at that point in time. James, it was an adventurous, fun, exciting, weird night for Braden Smith, honored before the game by the school as the new Big Ten assist leader of all time. That was pretty cool. Then he got into some early foul trouble, got 3 in the first half, but he ended up scoring 23 points with 7 assists and kind of doing Braden Smith things again. Trey Kaufman-Renn, 14 points, 14 rebounds. They are now 14-1, 4-0 in the Big Ten. They will play Saturday at 2 p.m. against Penn State. But to Kevin's point, they look like a really complete basketball team when they're playing their best.
Yeah, I would say even Braden Smith would argue that he didn't play his best last night. 6 turnovers, too high for the all-time great point guard. So got to be a little cleaner there. But, yeah, I'm nitpicking. He is one of the premier players you'll see put on a college uniform.
All right, Indiana got a road win last night, 84-66 against Maryland. Lamar Wilkerson had 24 points. And, Kevin, if folks are just joining us now, I had pointed out at the very beginning of the show, he went on a personal 16-4 run against Maryland in the second half.
Yeah, he's got that heater ability, and, he hit some shots last night that were, hell, from Scott Van Pelt's seat there. In the front row. By the way, I think there might have been more players on the Indiana bench than there were in the seats last night there in Maryland. So important to get a road win. Again, Maryland is terrible without their best player, but I thought really nice second half in particular. Connor Enright, I think he deserves mention as well. I thought
he 16,
he gave, and I think defensively he gives a lot as well. So about to get real for Indiana here. Nebraska, as crazy as that sounds, a huge one inside of Assembly Hall coming up at noon on Saturday.
The Hoosiers now 3-1 in conference play, 12-3 overall. Also, a shout out to Tatum Conaway, who had 19 points and 8 rebounds last night. College football semifinals get underway tonight. Glendale, Arizona for the first one. That'll be the Fiesta Bowl. Miami against Ole Miss, 7:30 p.m. It'll be on ESPN. Miami favored by 3.5, JB, but Mississippi's got that kid Trinidad Chambliss. He looked terrific in that game that he played. Man, they were tough to stay. Georgia couldn't figure it out.
No, they could not. This should be a very good game. I think, to Kevin's point from earlier, the IU game will be perhaps a bit more lopsided, assuming that they knock off Oregon for the second time this year. But this one right here, ooh, baby. And I think Miami actually scares me more than Ole Miss, if I'm an IU fan.
Yeah, speaking of IU, tomorrow night against Oregon in Atlanta, a Peach Bowl. That one also starts at 7:30 on ESPN. It's a rematch of a regular season game that the Hoosiers won in Eugene 30-20. Right now, they are favored by 3.5. I looked again this morning, Kevin. The ESPN analyzer gives them a better than 70% chance to win this football game.
Yeah, I'll continue to say what I've said all week long. I really like Indiana in this matchup. Shout out to Greg. He tweeted at us earlier. He is on the road shortly to the ATL. So for those out there that are traveling, safe commute down there. I think it's a great stadium. It's one of the newer stadiums in the NFL. Really good viewing experience. And I expect that to be heavy cream and crimson in there, a la Rose Bowl, if not more. Oregon played at Miami last week. Mm-hmm. So, that's a lot to ask for old tiny Eugene Airport to be sending people again to Atlanta in huge droves. So I think that will be a neutral site in, location only. Yeah. I think that'll be Memorial Stadium South.
By the way, the answer is, as somebody who's made that trip many times over the years, quicker if you go through Knoxville. But if you want to stop in Nashville and have a little fun for a little while, you can do that too.
Nashville fun, you might not make it to Atlanta. I was going to say,
be careful there. You might as well just send your tickets to somebody else.
Hey, I will say this. Greg Cooper, again, who you shouted out, him wearing this hoodie that says significant is pretty cool. And it's spelled with the C for Coach Signetti.
The amount of Signetti, paraphernalia that's come out of this
pretty nice.
is awesome.
Pacers play the Hornets tonight. You mentioned that a moment ago, Kevin. That'll be in Charlotte. They will try to snap that 13-game losing streak, and you said it's been a month today since their last win, correct?
Yeah, so we'll see if they get it done. Again, they do benefit Charlotte on a back-to-back. They lost a heartbreaker last night. LaMelo Ball, beautiful left-handed layup that looked to be the game winner. And then Emmanuel quickly hits a 3 at the buzzer to beat them. Brandon Miller's status a little bit up in the air. So, yes, this is a golden opportunity for the Pacers tonight.
One other NBA note, Atlanta has traded Trae Young, JB, to the Washington Wizards for C.J. McCollum and Corey Kispert. I get why Washington kind of wants to do that deal, but does either team get that much better with that trade?
Yeah, I think they actually do. I want to say, reading through an article last night about the trade, when Trae Young was out, the Hawks were 13-9, and when he came back, they went 0-5 with him. So their best player now is Jalen Johnson, who, if you're looking at NBA hierarchies and how teams usually go, your best player can't be a 6'1" guard and you win it all. It just doesn't happen unless your name is
Allen Iverson.
They didn't even win it all. I was
No,
going to
but
say,
they were-
unless
they
you're a
were
little
close.
bit taller and your name is Stephen Curry or Isaiah Thomas. So, interesting trade. I think a lot of it has to do like salary cap dumps and stuff like that. But to be honest with you, I won't be watching the Wizards or the Hawks anytime soon.
You know, the Hawks making the Eastern Conference Finals a few years ago will always be kind of a mystery to me. It's like, wait, gosh, they did, didn't they?
And then they just
Remember that
disappeared
Trae
again.
Young series, like in
Yeah.
Madison Square
and
Garden?
don't get me
against the
wrong, he
Knicks.
is a great player. He can light it up, but he's such a defensive liability that you have to kind of build your team uniquely around him to have any success. He kind of reminds me of Luka. Luka's a bigger player, height and weight-wise, but neither one plays any defense, so you have to, I guess, compensate for that.
Kevin, this one for you. Scotty Scheffler says that he will return to play later this month at the American Express in La Quinta, California. He had that hand surgery last year, so I know he's one of your favorite players. It'll be fun to get him back on the tour again.
I have one favorite player, and that's Tiger.
I thought you were a Scotty guy, too.
No.
You're not?
No.
Wow. I thought you were. You've always spoken well of him.
Great talent. Great player. I root for Tiger.
Well, we all do, but is that ever going to happen again, do you think?
I root for Tiger, and I'm married to Maddie Bowen.
Well, there you go. I like it. And
I respect.
he's also devoted to Notre Dame basketball.
Big one, Clemson coming up. Clemson, nice win last night. By the way, shout out to Braylon Mullins. That UConn
Ooh,
Providence
baby.
game, one of the better games of the night in college basketball. UConn coming back to win that 24 for Braylon Mullins, 6 3-pointers.
The
So
jumper is pure. I watched that and was thinking to myself, slow start because of the injury, but he's one and done.
yeah,
That's an NBA player right there. So I do not think he will be.
and that's a
in stores
UConn
very
team
long.
that could be right here in the 3-1-7 that first week of
Absolutely.
April.
Wouldn't be surprised. All right, coming up in a minute, we'll talk more about Indiana and their semifinal game against the Oregon Ducks. And Chris Ballard speaks to the media later on today. We'll get to the text line for the first time at 239-1070. All straight ahead on a Thursday morning at 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
This is the Fan Morning Show with KB, JB, and Jeff.
You earned another opportunity, or were you just given another opportunity?
That's a loaded one. That's okay. I'll answer it though, James. I mean, Bowen ought to at least be freaking happy for once. I mean, you got heard about beat over the head with wideouts forever. Bowen, every time I freaking read or listen to Bowen, it's like a constant freaking barrage of wideouts. Do you have kids, James?
Very proud of that.
Yeah. Well, sometimes with your kids, you expect them to do things and they don't do them.
Any early thoughts on the 2023 quarterback class?
Oh, God. Kevin, like you're going to ask doubting questions the whole time, James. I get it. And I understand why. But at the end of the day, time is what proves you're right or wrong.
Keep that last part, Caleb. At the end of the day, time is what proves you're right or wrong, James.
Who do you think he likes more, me or Kevin?
Well, here's the thing. And again, I've said this before. I like Chris Ballard. I do. I enjoy when I have conversations with him. I think he's a good human being. He has struggled to get it going here with the Indianapolis Colts. And if he thinks you guys are tough, can you imagine a dozen of you all at the same time in New York, and half of those dozen are truly out to get you?
I don't know. Kevin frickin' Bowen is pretty tough.
Eddie Garrison sent me the clip from it was the combine, when he said that, and I've always said this, I really appreciate Chris not only listening, but reading. How about that? The double whammy there. Outside of Colleen and Brad Bowen, I don't know how many people are doing the double whammy, reading Kevin Bowen's work and also listening. But he did draft Alec Pierce 2 months after that little interaction there. So
that was
that
was a hit.
Spoken into existence right there.
And that was a hit
at the NFL Combine.
I mean, that was the right pick, obviously. Time has told that.
Certainly one of his better ones.
Yeah, and
shout out to Caleb on the rejoiner there too. That was pretty good work, brother.
Caleb, that's a lot of audio that you had to go through there.
I had some time in my other part-time job. Let's just say that.
I just want to point out that Caleb, when he was playing that, had the biggest smile on his
funny,
face.
Man.
It was.
I thought it was.
You did a nice job. You've done great being here for Mark. But by the way, for people who are asking, we will carry some of that press conference, at least the first few minutes of that press conference with Chris Ballard today. I generally find that press conferences are great for hardcore fans. For most of our listeners, after the first few minutes, they kind of start glazing their eyes over sometimes. So we will carry the first several minutes of that, and anything big is spoken of or anything major happens, of course, we'll tell you all about that.
It's 11 a.m., by the way.
Yeah. What do you think the chances are that starts at 11 a.m., by the way?
Well, we definitely didn't get started on time earlier this week. I don't know. Is Ballard usually on time, James? I feel like he's occasionally a little late.
A little bit, but
Steichen is always on time. That man is...
He's early.
Yeah, I was going to say he's usually early.
Punctual.
Yeah. Punctual, yes. Thank you. Gosh, you sound like my dad.
I think Chris Ballard's done a lot of good things. There's been some hits in the draft. There's been, I liked some of the moves he made in the offseason, in the middle of the season. I'm fine with all that.
What are the good things? Should we go over that? What are the Chris
before
Ballard
we get there, let me
good
finish
things?
my thought first. The problem is he's not gotten the quarterback or the edge rusher, the two most important positions, in my opinion, in the National Football League. Those are the things that he's messed up.
I think he's really drafted well in the offensive line. And I think you're seeing a nice passing of the torch with that group. Tanner Bortolini, Matt Gonsalves, potentially Jalen Travis. I do think he has hit really nicely. Linebacker is a position he's historically drafted very well. I do think it needs further retooling. But yeah, I would point to both of those areas as areas he's done a very nice job on.
Yeah, but again, quarterback and edge. And how do you address those? You're probably going to address quarterback by bringing Daniel Jones back, despite the fact he won't probably be ready for the first week or two or three or four, depending on how things go. But again, how do they address this problem with rushing the quarterback, James?
That's a question I'll pass along to Chris Ballard, but a lot of it I think will have to do with retooling that defensive line. I was looking yesterday, Kevin. So Kwity Paye and Samson Ebukam combined for 6 sacks this past season. That ain't going to cut it. So you did pick up Kwity Paye's fifth-year option last year. So he's going into free agency. I would not retain him. Samson Ebukam, that was one where actually me and Chris Ballard butted heads on this way back at the owners' meetings where the GM also spoke. And I asked him, why are you all bringing him back? Or is this something that gives you pause because he's had the Achilles injury? And he kind of laughed it off and told me, hey, don't count him out. 2 sacks this past year. So he should not be retained either, especially given his age. And I think from there, it's all about how can you make sure you retain Daniel Jones. That's going to cost you some money. Retain Alec Pierce. That's going to cost you some money. And then find some more money to perhaps go out there and get a free agent to address your defensive line. Because when it has worked, and it didn't work this past year, but when it has worked in the past under Ballard, a lot of it, Kevin, has been the free agent signing versus the person you draft.
James, you might know this off the top of your head, but Kwity Paye was north of $10 million this year,
It was
right?
13.8, and it was fully guaranteed because of the fifth-year option.
It was that fifth-year option as a first-round pick. He played every game this season, which I always find notable. Like when you're saying season-long stats, when you play, Alec Pierce had over 1,000 yards. He didn't even play every game. So I always think that's kind of worth pointing out. He played every game, and if you look at his numbers, he ranked 88th in the NFL in sacks. I think it's 123rd in tackles for loss, and the quarterback hit number was right in that general range. I mean, again, that's to me, kind of defines you as a defensive lineman, as a consistent playmaker. Even if you put sacks, in a different category, if you look at tackles for loss and you look at quarterback hits, so that has definitely been a miss of a draft pick when you look at that.
Here are the top 5 cap hits in 2026 for the Colts. Michael Pittman Jr. has a $29 million cap hit for this year. DeForest Buckner, a $26.6 million cap hit. Quentin Nelson, $24.2. Mooney Ward, $20.1. Bernard Ryman, $17.5. But dead cap, if there were to be a move made, Pittman's just $5 million of dead cap. DeForest Buckner still stays big at 20.8, and then Quentin Nelson is a $6.2 million cap hit. And I only bring that up because Michael Pittman Jr., it seems like his spot with the Colts is very tenuous at this point in time, James.
Yeah, he addressed it himself after the season. Literally after the season ended and said, yeah, if this is my last game as a Colt, had a great time here. He would like to be retained. And I know people are always kind of skeptical about how real that is. I mean, the man built a farm here in Indiana. So
I know. I was going to say,
want to leave the farm.
You usually don't say that about a USC guy, but I do feel like he really has enjoyed the lifestyle of living here. So I am curious, could that be a shaking of the hands? Because if you are to lose, again, Michael Pittman Jr. at $29 million cap hit is a ridiculous number. Let me be very clear on that. But if you are able to, get that on a more reasonable number, could that be part of 2026? Because, James, I guess this gets a little bit into the A.D. Mitchell departure. If you were to lose Michael Pittman Jr., wide receiver really starts to go up in the need list. I mean, who are your wideouts? Alec Pierce, Josh Downs, and Ashton Dulin? That is way too much pressure on those 3 to stay healthy and be available. And I love Ashton Dulin, but asking him to play 60 snaps as an outside wideout for 17 weeks out of the year, not to mention his special teams responsibilities, is a little bit too much on his plate. So wide receiver would become a big need if you were to move Pittman. Now, if you still had A.D. Mitchell, maybe that could soften it if he would have shown some development here. But that's just something to keep in mind. When you mention the names of Michael Pittman Jr., Zaire Franklin, Kenny Moore II, a lot of those guys, I don't think, Nick Cross is a free agent. I think paying 2 safeties is the amount of money that you would have to if you re-sign Cross is a lot. But then I'm like, who else? Who are the guys ready to step up at those positions? A lot of it's, I think, going to have to be outside of the building guys.
Yeah, and we'll start asking questions of Chris Ballard about all that stuff a little bit later on today. What's the one thing you're really interested in hearing from him? What's your big question, James?
How much do you weigh the injuries in your evaluation of yourself and how you built this team? Because everyone above you is saying, well, we were the team that was 8-2, and the team that went 8-9 and lost the last 7 games of the year isn't who we really are. Do you believe that? So that'll be an interesting debate or conversation later today. But honestly, sitting here talking about the Colts, I don't want to forget that we're also in a more positive time for the IU Hoosiers, who have a huge game coming up tomorrow against Oregon. And again, Kevin, going through some of the media day stuff that they had to do and hearing Fernando Mendoza just say, hey, we're still underdogs. I love how athletes are able to, I don't know, psych themselves out, fake it till you make it type of thing, because they've been such a good team all year. But you better believe that Curt Signetti has all those guys believing that we're saying they're going to lose or something like that. Like, I don't know how you build it up and how you block it out, but I just imagine Fernando Mendoza having something in his locker that says, like, way back on this day, they said this. And they're such a good team.
James, I remember this when Georgia won their second national championship. I think one of their players said
I do remember this.
Everybody had us at 7-5.
Everyone doubted
and here
us.
we are.
Yeah.
Like the best coaches in this sport, I feel like, find a way to motivate their team.
Signetti kind of did it leading into the Rose Bowl, talking about how bad of practices they had out there, in Pasadena. So you got to empty it all. You go through the binder, okay? Where's all of it at? But no, I think they are a deserved favorite, and honestly, I'd probably take them a little bit more than just 3.5 points coming up tomorrow night. Kind of going back to a conversation we had earlier in the week, I think it's vital that defensive line disrupts Dante Moore. And I know Texas Tech, who Oregon just played, they have a pretty vaunted defensive line, but I think if you let Dante Moore operate, hit the 5-step drop, pat the ball, go through his progressions, then I think you're going to see a dude that a lot of NFL teams covet on Sundays. But I think if you are able to disrupt, basically, I'd like to see Dante Moore see if he can have the game C.J. Stroud had a couple years ago against Georgia in the national semifinal. You guys remember that game, Ohio State-Georgia, when C.J. Stroud literally, and I know it sounds weird to say, but Ohio State had some injuries. He literally put that Ohio State team on its back.
Yeah, he solidified
in one of the more
pick.
impressive individual performances we've seen. I thought that kind of cemented, for me at least, his status in the NFL. For Dante Moore, I think it's still okay, show me that, the end of the Iowa game, there's more of that in there. And part of it is just he hasn't had a ton of opportunity, but I also don't think Oregon's been put in a ton of conflict. Indiana certainly put them into conflict, and he got sacked 6 times and threw for whatever it was, 60-some%, and had one of his worst games, if not the worst game of his career. So that, I think, is goal number 1. Can you put Dante Moore into some, hey, that first read, that second read, it ain't there for you. How are you going to operate?
How about this, too? I was reading this in Front Office Sports. Mark Cuban, very famous IU graduate, told the Front Office Sports in an email that he donated another big portion to Hoosiers and NIL and all those types of things to help them in the portal. So, again, I think what we're witnessing right now is very fun to think of in the moment, and I definitely want to live in it because this is crazy. This team can go undefeated and pull off what would be, I can't even say it's like Hoosiers. It would be Hoosiers on steroids when it comes to this actually happening as far as movie type of endings. But within that, they're still building and retooling for next year. I mean, you think about Fernando Mendoza, he was a transfer portal guy, and then you have Mark Cuban saying, well, this was great investment last year. Let's go back and do it again. And all he would say when it was asked what dollar amount he gave, he kept that to himself. But he said, let's just say they are happier this year than last year. Boy, that is exciting times for IU fans.
I think, I don't know if Scott Olson necessarily said this to us directly, but, I believe there are some whispers there that, you go down to Bloomington and some of that money that might be on one side of the parking lot north of 17th is now going to maybe more of the west side of the parking lot if my geography is right down there. So, yeah, I mean, and I think you saw it from what's the rumor on that TCU quarterback? Like $4 million?
It's a lot of money.
I mean,
a lot of money.
This is the age we're living in.
And it's freaking wild. Wild.
Generational wealth before you get your degree.
I'm still fascinated to see what's going to happen with the Washington quarterback who signed a contract with the team last week, and then over the weekend's like, yeah, I'm going to leave. I want to go. And Washington's like, oh, no, you're not. We have a signed piece of paper right here, and we're holding you to it. It'll be fascinating to see how that plays out.
The preseason poll, Oregon is ranked 7, Miami 10, IU 20, Ole Miss 21. I think the last time we got to the Final Four and we had nobody from the preseason top 5.
And I think that's indicative of what we're talking about.
That's crazy, too. I didn't think about that. Whoa.
Because don't you think those rankings
and only
still...
one in the top, I guess, 9 when you look at Oregon.
don't you think that those rankings still reflect somewhere a deep-seated bias of voters with brand names and past history and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think with IU there was a hey, let's see them do it again. Certainly there. Yeah, I think that's probably fair. I mean, Miami lost Cam Ward. Granted, Carson Beck was pretty coveted in the old transfer portal.
Yeah, and when we start talking about what Indiana did to Oregon, and when I say did that, yes, they gave up the pick six. They still won by double digits on the road in Eugene, and that defense had 2 takeaways. They had 6 sacks, but it's indicative of everything they've done all year long. Going into this game, nationally, Indiana is number 2 in points allowed in the entire country, number 2 in rush yards allowed, number 2 in total yards allowed, number 1 in red zone defense. They are for real. This defense is probably clearly the best defense overall in college football right now, James, and they've proven it week after week after week. That's what Oregon's going to have to overcome.
Yeah, and that's why I'm not buying the underdog talk. It's a nice bulletin board point, but in reality, that team is very, very good. And they're very, I think at this point, experienced too. I get that Fernando Mendoza came over. This is 1 year at IU, but you got a lot of players here who came over with Signetti during that first year transition, and now you're seeing the fruits of that labor. So I'm excited for it, and I'm looking forward to, as you have laid out this week, Kevin, a lot of football, because it starts tonight, doesn't end until Monday night, and you're looking at, if you're a college and NFL fan, I mean, you got to, I guess, come up with some excuses. If you're unlike me, you got the missus and the kids, you got to figure out ways to keep the tube going.
Hey, if you got a significant other, I hope you did date night early in the week, because date night can't be happening again until this time next week.
Hey, you and I are very lucky. You with Maddie and me with Christine, because they get what we do for a living, and they're also sports fans. That helps, right?
I was going to say, is Maddie, is she a huge
She's enough of a sports fan, right?
She gets into it, like, you know. I don't think she's going. You know, she's not like, why isn't Big Ten Network on last night? You know,
Christine's the same
I don't think she's going out of her way necessarily, but you know, she is a very proud IU grad, and again, you know, her family is very into this IU football run. So yes, she is definitely. You know, she'll be clapping. She'll be loud on a third down, but I wouldn't say she's going. You know, she's not on Peaks.com necessarily.
But they get what we do.
I'm not going to lie. If she was looking at, what was it, 24/7 Sports rankings to figure out, you know, the next top kid, that would be funny,
right?
Man.
She's already looking ahead to what the Colts might do in the second round this coming year.
Don't think she's diving.
No, Christine's the same way, except for the Green Bay Packers. She will always stop what she's doing for the Green Bay Packers. And you know what? During this run, she stops what she's doing to watch Indiana.
Yeah,
she came home from something the other day, and she was a few minutes late watching the game. She made me rack it back to the beginning and watch it every single play from the very beginning.
Maddie was unfamiliar with who Martha the Mop Lady was. For our IU faithful out there, Martha the Mop Lady, certainly a very iconic figure in IU athletics. She was on her parents' flight out to the Rose Bowl, and they took a picture with Martha, and Maddie was a little confused on who Martha from Bloomington was, so that probably goes to show you where her IU fan was at. Well, one thing I do want to note from that Texas Tech game, because, you know, again, I watched a lot of that on New Year's Day, that Oregon-Texas Tech game, and one thing I was very impressed by was Oregon's D-line, and so I think it's vital for Indiana, which has been one of their more consistent themes throughout, is, you know, just maintaining that balance, making sure that they do run it effectively. And again, comparing Fernando Mendoza to the Texas Tech quarterback is probably ludicrous. So I do think Indiana has that going for them. But just making sure you stay out of some of the obvious situations. Oregon's D-line, that's a group that can get humming. And they definitely got after the Texas Tech kid a good amount and really set up some short fields in that game. It was really an ugly game, Oregon-Texas Tech. Very sloppy on both sides of it. I mean, Oregon had some issues as well, offensively handling snaps and stuff like that. So, you know, that is something just to keep an eye on.
It is going to be fun to watch tonight. One semifinal, 7:30. Tomorrow, Indiana plays at 7:30 on ESPN. Both those games going to be fun to watch, no question. John M. writes in at 239-1070, if this team had the resume and everything that they've done this year, and they had Alabama or Ohio State's logo next to it, we'd be talking about this being one of the greatest college football teams of all time. That defense is already, I just gave you the stats right now, they're just owning all of college football. And the clutch gene has certainly been there for the offense. Every time they've needed to, they've responded with a drive to score, to either get back in the game, take the lead in the game, or put a game away every single time so far this year.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm ready for the conversation of like, where they rank on the great pantheon of college football
Joe
teams.
Klatt started that discussion on his podcast this week.
Yeah, I'll just sit here in the present of I can't wait for tomorrow night.
Yeah, I was going to say, win it all first.
Win.
But I will say,
I mean, Joe Burrow's LSU team is probably the first one that comes to mind, and that was a pretty darn good football team. I feel like when you get in those conversations, you ultimately have to like nitpick an unbelievable story. And I'm not
and they've got work to do here. Still 2 games away.
Yeah, I don't know if necessarily whatever Penn State, Iowa. Yeah, I don't really want to entertain that convo. I'm just ready to see tomorrow night, and I fully expect them to win, and I think they'll win by more than the spread.
Yeah. I know Bear was hanging on for the line for a minute, had to get going. If he wants to call back, we can try to get him in. Thad Mata coming your way at 8:30 this morning.
Like the animal?
Bear, that's what he said, right, Caleb?
A literal bear was on the line.
Shout out.
Yeah.
Bears at the zoo.
So that's where we're headed today. A lot of comments on the Colts right now. Anonymous says Michael Pittman may not be an all-pro receiver, but he is a valuable football player, very good support player. Radio station similarly has 1 recognized all-pro journalist, James Boyd, and 2 adequate supporters. So do you get rid of them? My point is,
whoa. Can we go through that again?
Did you write? Is that your burner right there? Is that your burner right there, Boyd?
Run that back, because I was the first part like a
just a
compliment,
little
and then was
slower
it a
this
dig or
time.
something?
The
I'm
radio
confused.
station similarly has 1 recognized all-pro journalist, James Boyd, and 2 adequate supporters. So do you get rid of them?
Man.
First of all, I don't believe Kevin and I make $29 million a year.
I'm going to have to go take a smoke break here during the break after reading that. So
But
Jeff is
About
A.D.
time
Mitchell.
I got my respect.
Yeah. I'm
So
A.D. Mitchell.
Jeff's A.D. Mitchell, right?
Sure.
I mean, that's obvious. Who would I be, James? And am I Coleman Owen? Am I Laquan Treadwell?
I was going to say,
Zaire Franklin.
Boy.
I say Doolin. I'll give you a little more credit.
Then the starting,
Thank
then
you,
the starting
Caleb.
linebacker.
all-purpose action.
Caleb, I'm going to give you a hug during the break.
Well, yeah, me and Alan
Caleb.
Pierce are from a similar area in Illinois, so shout out to.
But the issue for Michael Pittman isn't what he brings and what he does. It's what his cap hit is going to be in the second half of his career, and they're trying to balance all these contracts. That's the problem. That's not that anybody doesn't like Michael Pittman, but is he too expensive at this point in time?
Right. I mean, he's not a $29 million player. That is quite, I think, obvious to anybody out there. But again, if he were to leave for whatever reason, wideout becomes somewhere on that need list. I don't think it's necessarily 1 or 2 on the need list, but Alec Pierce, unfortunately, has had a couple concussions pop up. So yeah, it would be something you would have to toss on the old offseason priority list.
All right, we'll talk more about the Colts coming up in just a moment. Also more on Indiana getting ready for a semifinal game against Oregon tomorrow night. Pacers trying to turn it around tonight against the Hornets. It's all coming your way next. It's 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. Good morning, and speaking of the fan, later on tonight, it'll be the Hornets and Pacers be coming your way this evening. Looking forward to that. Pregame at 6:30, tip at 7 o'clock. We'll see if the Pacers can get off the schneid, as they like to say. And we'll continue talking about the Colts. And Chris Ballard's got a press conference coming up at 11 o'clock this morning. Want to get back to Indiana and Oregon, which is coming up tomorrow night, guys. And we've talked all about Indiana and the success they've had and the surprise and all those kinds of things. What's also been fun to watch, Kevin, are the alumni, the players that have played in the past, even going back to when they were with Bill Mallory and went to a couple of bowl games. I think the last time they went to the Peach Bowl, Bill Mallory was the head coach there. Trent Green, prior to Fernando Mendoza winning the Heisman Trophy, is Trent Green one of the 2 or 3 best quarterbacks that Indiana's ever had?
Yeah, I would assume. I mean, Antoine Randall, of course, a Heisman Trophy vote getter. I think he finished 6th maybe when he was playing in Indiana, but obviously from an NFL career, yes.
Yeah, pretty good stuff. So he was talking on SiriusXM the other day about what it's meant to guys like him that have certainly been Indiana fans all this time and have lived through all the struggles and wore the uniform and what it's been like to see the turnaround in the state of where Indiana is at this point in time.
When I was there, we went to a handful of bowl games, and Bill Mallory is loved in the state of Indiana and at Indiana University for, at that time, that was like the success of the program was kind of that era, the Bill Mallory era, and some of the guys that I played with, and it was. It's pretty cool. We all, there's different group texts and emails, and guys are reaching out, and the fact of what's going on the last couple of years. No. So to answer your question, no, none of us can really believe it. And I think, I think when you sit and you listen to Kurt, to Signetti, when he's doing his interviews, and he said, I had to change the mindset, not only of the team, I had to change the mindset of the university, because the university used to be like, when I went there, it was, hey, we want to try and get to a bowl game, and if we're able to make it to the Rose Bowl, that would be great. So the goal was always the Rose Bowl, because back then the Big Ten champion would go to the Rose Bowl. So it was, hey, let's make a bowl game, number one, and then if it's the Rose Bowl, then that's the ultimate. Well, there was never, hey, we're going to try and be a top 10 team. We're going to try and be the number one team in the country. We're, those kinds of things. And when you listen to Kurt talk in the different interviews that he's had, he talks about that mindset and trying to not only change the players and the coaches in the athletic department, but change the university, change the state, and change the country in the way that they look at Indiana football. It says a lot about him and a lot about the university and how they've redone his contract a couple of times now to keep him, because there are a lot of teams 100% trying to come get him and to duplicate what he's been able to do in Bloomington. And so give credit to the university for re-upping him before it got to that point, but also give him credit because he definitely could get more money somewhere else. But he found a home in Indiana. He loves what the university does in terms of support. And this is what's happened the last 2 seasons, and especially this season. None of us saw this coming.
A lot of fun for everyone involved, and I like the fact that, look, Kurt Signetti's the guy driving this thing. There is no question about that. But he's gotten support from President Pam Whitten and from Scott Dolson and from boosters like Mark Cuban. It really is turning into kind of the perfect storm right now, Kevin.
Yeah, I remember we had, and by the way, I think Trent Green might join us next week. Mark was saying on that. Sean McDonough tomorrow at this very segment, 8 a.m. tomorrow. He's on the call, him and Greg McElroy, which that's my favorite crew, honestly, from a college football standpoint. They'll have the call coming up tomorrow night there from Atlanta. But yeah, I mean, you think back to, I think we had Dan Wetz, a longtime college football writer, on a few weeks back, or maybe it was a few months ago at this point, and he had the line of he was the perfect coach at the perfect time. And I think that is an important kind of part in all of this of, Kurt Signetti's track record is obviously, speaks for itself, but, is he able to get all the JMU guys to come with him if you make that hire when you hired, whatever, Terry Hepner or Tom Allen or Kevin Wilson or no, that's just not how the landscape of college football works. So, and obviously the JMU guys deserve a ton of credit for, what they have done, especially last year. Obviously, they're still a huge part of this core, but then, without last year's success, I don't think Fernando Mendoza is necessarily, front and center. Helped that his brother, of course, is on the roster and he had a connection there. But now it's turned into, oh, wow, IU's got financial backing that people, I don't know if they fully realized around the nation that they would have a supportive football program in an era that, really is frankly just a lot of capitalism.
It's just, like I said, perfect storm. You've explained it very well. And James, I know you became a believer when they got the Illini, but honestly, this team, you start to look at them, and they've dominated the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball against virtually every team they've played. Their skill position players, I've said this before, when you look at the 2 running backs, the 3 top receivers, they're as good as any skill position group in the country. You got the Heisman Trophy winner, for goodness sakes, at quarterback. All the metrics I pointed out in the last hour about being a top 5 defense in so many different categories and number 1 in a couple of categories. I know they still have 2 games to win, and there's a lot of work to be done, and they're 120 minutes away. I get all that. You still have to go win and not make mistakes and keep doing what you're doing. But objectively, they're the best team in the country to this point in time, James. They just are.
For sure. I'm actually looking at D'Angelo Pons, his bio on the IU website, and there's a photo of him. He must have had a pick or something against Illinois, and it's him in the end zone with some Illinois player on the ground looking very defeated. And I'm bringing.
Does it say Boyd on the back of the jersey there? No.
Nah.
Okay.
I ain't playing no football. Mama made sure I didn't even take charges in high school. I was always a kid lying to my coach. Yeah, I'll slide over next time. Never was going to do that. But D'Angelo Pons, I think he's another player that when I look at what he brings to this defense in particular, a game changer, Kevin. And the man is 5'9", 173 listed on the roster here. He plays like he's built of, I don't know, like steel, because he just goes and puts guys on the ground. And
knocked Ty Simpson out of the game, right?
Yeah, and it made him fumble. And so, again, when you think of from a physicality standpoint, he's the type of guy that brings that extra edge, that brings that extra dynamic to the game. And it's exciting to watch, but also they're disciplined. So when I'm watching IU, even if, because, for example, the Ty Simpson play was a first down run. And in your mind, that's a defeat for the defense, at least in that moment. You let this guy get loose, he turns it upfield, they get a little momentum. And at that time, they did have momentum. And they're still playing to the absolute end of the play, rallying to the ball, and then here he is with a game-changing play. So that mentality, the ability to finish, I was actually reading about this in The Athletic, and they caught up with, I have to look it up now, but the IU defensive backs coach. And he was talking about how him and Kurt Signetti were like getting on their players, even though they were up against Alabama, like, no. We can't drop off because the game is lopsided. We're not going to have bad habits because the game is lopsided. I'm not going to let you do anything out of character because we're up by 1 million, because those moments turn into, we might need you in a week if somebody goes down and we're trying to, close this thing out in a bigger game. So from that standard, it's very impressive.
Yeah, and you brought up earlier in the week, I think if there is one area where I think Oregon can certainly make this a game, it is the ability to, if you give Dante more time, throw the ball down the field.
Yeah.
And, we have seen, not very often, but we have seen an occasional defensive lapse for Indiana this season on that back end. So I do think that probably would be one question here coming up tomorrow night for Indiana. But, again, I think their defensive line is able to disrupt, things enough, even without Stephen Daly, for that to be not too much of a worry at all. So if you're making your commute down to Atlanta right now, thank you, first off, for listening to us. And give us a call, 317-239-1070.
Let me know how the wings are in Magic City.
Yeah, oh, boy.
Lemon pepper.
Hey, Lou Williams left the bubble to try those wings. So
you imagine what the buffet could look like there tomorrow before the game?
Hey, I'm just saying, man.
That's the ultimate pregame, right?
I'd forgotten about that in the bubble, going to get wings. He got kicked out, didn't he?
I think he had to go quarantine for a while, but hey, again, just
you quarantine in Magic City, and boy, you might
you got to experience
you might
a few
be
things
stuck with something more than COVID.
John M. texts in, how many of the skill position players have a legitimate NFL future? 6? We're not used to seeing this kind of talent.
Well, certainly both those, first 2 wideouts. We've talked with Dan Brigler from The Athletic about it. Omar Cooper Jr., he mentioned as, kind of a top 100 guy.
Yeah, he's a day 2 guy.
Elijah Surratt, I think, would fall maybe just past that. But yeah, I mean, I'm very impressed by the running backs, and obviously Charlie Becker's still a young dude. And Charlie Becker, we talk about his emergence. I mean, we're talking about a dude that was a Tennessee State champion in the hurdles, and I think you see that athleticism,
that jump, that leaping catch in the end zone. Yeah,
you see that on the field with him. I mean, that's no joke. When you are, when I don't care what state it is, but if you're a state track champion in really any event, in particular the hurdles, you obviously have a ton of athleticism there. So yes, this is a team that, I want to say Dane mentioned that of all the teams in college football right now, I think he believes Indiana could be third on the list for draft picks coming up in April, which obviously tells you a whole lot about player development and Sunday, eyes that you are attracting there. And it's not just the number one overall pick. It's, Carter Smith at left tackle. It's some of those guys on the defensive side of the ball, obviously those wideouts as well.
Yeah, I was mentioning the matchup predictor at ESPN.com says IU with a 70.4% chance to win this football game after they run the thousands of simulations that they run for whatever that's worth. But the 3.5-point spread, I know you don't partake in a lot of this stuff, James, but if you did, how enticing is that 3.5-point spread that Indiana's favored by just more than a field goal right now?
Yeah, I think you take that. I think they're good enough to beat this team by a touchdown, honestly. So, not the betting type, and I'm certainly glad I didn't bet on the IU Illinois game from earlier this year. But yeah, they are the betting favorite, right? Aren't they the betting favorite to win it all at this point?
Yeah.
So
$10 to win 12, right?
Not going to be
Isn't that what we said yesterday?
Yeah, not going to be up. Not going to be underdogs in that regard.
Yeah. One thing to keep in mind, just got to keep that offensive line intact and keep that Oregon pass rush, which has had success at times in some of their games. They got a couple of dudes that can get to the quarterback. That's the one thing. If you're Indiana, you just want to keep minimizing the turnovers, which they've been great at all year long, and keep Mendoza clean in that pocket more often than not. And I think that's a really good recipe for winning against this Oregon team.
Well, and Mendoza had, I thought, some key scrambles against Alabama. And again, it's maybe not the most aesthetically beautiful looking thing, but he can be effective when it comes to that. And so, if and when those things happen, because I do think Oregon's D-line certainly deserves some credit, those will be key. Just to extend drives, be methodical. I go back to that second drive against Alabama. The first drive, they get the 3 and out. Mendoza sacked twice, I think, on that opening drive. Bama gets a short field. Great work by your defense not to allow anything, but then they pin you back. And that's another one of those kind of dangerous opportunities of it's early in the game, it's 0-0, who knows? And yet, here they are, converting a couple third downs, just kind of methodically move their way down the field. Next thing you know, it's like an 80-yard scoring drive. And now it's game on. So, those, parts of the game, obviously, will be huge.
Yeah, and I just want to point out Indiana's defense again, for those who missed it in the first hour, and maybe many of you have heard it already, but man, points allowed, second in the nation. Yards allowed, second in the nation. Sacks, fifth in the nation, 42 times this year. And 6 of those 42 came against Oregon the first time around, Kevin. They can get after you, man. They can certainly get after you. So it'll be fun to watch tomorrow night. Of course, the first game tonight, Ole Miss taking on Miami. That one comes your way 7:30 p.m. on ESPN. And I really liked watching Chambliss in that game against Georgia. I knew of him and watched some highlights of him this year. That's the first chance I really had to watch almost an entire game of him. He is, I use this word a lot, but for players that I like, he's electric as a quarterback. And he's trying to petition the NCAA to get one more year of eligibility so he can go back to Ole Miss.
Yeah, I don't understand anything when it comes to the rules of college football.
Do any of us
Should
anymore?
he get an extra year? Should he not? Who's paid? Who's not? Binding agreements? I don't know anymore. But I will say this. For the IU purposes, I don't know if anybody's trying to get out of their contract that they signed with IU.
No, everybody's trying to get here right now. So
I wonder who America's team is. Is it IU or is it Ole Miss? Like, I know we're in this bubble here in Indiana, but I wonder who the majority of America is rooting for, because both are kind of underdog stories in their own right, don't you think?
Yeah, both are great stories.
I was going to say, I might actually lean towards Ole Miss in that regard, Caleb, because of the hatred for Lane Kiffin.
Yeah.
And that seems universal. And
they are very different stories, like the Ole Miss Indiana story.
But with Lane Kiffin up and leaving them in the middle of what could be their best season ever, and then all the hoopla every single week about, assistants leaving, players, whatever. As I've always said on these airwaves, hate is very unifying, and sports hate is very unifying. So I think that when you look at this, when there's ever a common enemy, I hate this team, I hate this coach too, you can watch that and feel good about, what Ole Miss is doing. And it is an incredible story. I don't want to gloss over that.
And not just, okay, so you have the coaching side of it, which is wild. The hatred of Kiffin. Are these assistants at LSU? Are they not at LSU? Are they boarding the plane to go to the Fiesta Bowl or not? I mean, all of it
winning
is just,
with spit and elbow grease.
I mean, all of it's just wild drama. But the Chambliss story is wild. I mean, this dude played at Ferris State. I mean, at one point, like, UIndy's biggest rival felt like it was Ferris State. Can you imagine going to Key Stadium on a Saturday afternoon and watching UIndy and Ferris State and being like, oh, man, that Ferris State quarterback can make a few plays. And now we're watching them in the national title game, potentially, a week from Monday? I mean, the Chambliss story is crazy. Rather unheard of, when you look at it from that aspect to it. And, of course, Ole Miss lost their starting quarterback, in September. And I feel like he's kind of taken his game to another level. I know he's had a few comments about, early in the season, his thought process was, hey, I just need to, keep the ship afloat here. And we've got, great running back, et cetera, et cetera. And now it's like, wait a minute, I've got some playmaking in my game. I'm going to open it up. And hell, you saw that certainly in their Sugar Bowl win.
All right, so the semifinals coming your way tonight and tomorrow night. Be a lot of fun to watch both of those games, obviously, especially tomorrow night. Chris Ballard meeting with the media later on today at 11 a.m. Just to remind people, too, this coming year, if everything stays the same, they have their first pick will be the 47th overall, Kevin.
Where did they end up in round one? 16, 17? Somewhere around there? Is that where the Jets?
Yeah, I think 15 or 16, I'll double check.
Ended up getting the first round pick there. So, yeah, and they don't have their sixth rounder either. So they should get a couple late compensatory picks. But basically, you're looking at, which is very rare for Ballard, you're going to go into a draft with your 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then again, we'll see where the comp picks play out. But that's where I do think they should explore, can you move veterans for some extra draft picks?
16.
16? That's where the Jets are?
Right smack in the middle, Kevin. With an 8-9 record, there it is.
Par for the course, right? We're kind of used to that.
So that'll be later on today, and for those of you asking, we will carry at least the first few minutes of that press conference, see what Chris Ballard has to say. And I just wonder, we're running everything back again. Is this press conference just a rerun, James, of what we've seen the last couple of years?
I think in certain aspects it will be that, but in other cases, maybe not, just because of the success you had earlier in the year in 2025. Because the way you got to 8-9 was different than how you got to 8-9 the year before. I think that's probably something we have to address. I don't want to act like it changes a whole lot from the overall outcome, because missing the playoffs for a fifth straight year can't be dismissed. But again, I'm curious to know, Kevin, how much he weighs the idea of thinking we're this first half team, that's who we really are, versus the second half team when the injuries were a big part of why you collapsed, but not the only reason why you collapsed.
If John Harbaugh called Carly Ursay-Gordon today and said, I want to be your head coach and I want personnel control, what would she say?
She would probably say no, I think, because she's already made a decision on the current regime, but she should, if he would call, say yes.
I know what the text line wants. I know what the answer to that question is for the text line.
Already made a decision, or because of the financial ramifications of such a move?
Probably both. I mean, he's going to be
that's a good question.
He's a $20 million a year head coach at this point in time.
Other head coach is making $20 million a year.
Yeah, I put that down the other day. Maybe he's 16, 17, but he's up.
Yeah, we don't
make
know
a lot of money, man.
the official numbers.
That's the estimate that some of the business.
But yeah, it's definitely up there.
Sites have said.
And so I do think it's a factor, Kevin. And I don't want to act like money is not a factor. It always is. Money is the factor in 99% of our lives, it feels like, and definitely in pro sports. But if you had to put it on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you, I guess, putting it, Kevin? Because she dismissed it pretty quickly and said she was willing to do whatever it takes to, help this team win. And obviously, to be fair to Carly, there's only one way you can answer that question publicly.
I saw a couple of sites. John Harbaugh made $17 million last year.
Damn.
Andy Reid
That's
is
why
getting
when
$20 million.
people are like, why would you for example, when Ben Johnson left the Lions and went to the Bears and it was rough early, people were like, well, why would you leave the Lions? Because you got a whole lot of money guaranteed to go be the head coach.
He's making $13 million a year.
So, but
almost Kurt Signetti money by the time it's all
1
said
to
and done.
10.
Yeah, I things I feel uneducated talking about, James, medical injuries and pro ownership finances.
That's what I'm saying.
I just feel pretty uneducated when it comes to some of that stuff, but I feel like it's a little bit more of a factor than maybe we think it is. It's probably the simplest way I can put it. Again, I don't have strong conviction necessarily.
I don't think it's the deciding factor.
Right.
But money is always a factor.
I just think there's a little bit more smoke behind that than maybe, I don't know, maybe people do realize it, but I don't know. I just feel like there's a little bit more there than maybe is there in every other NFL city. It's probably the best way I can put it.
All right, we'll talk more about all of this a little bit later on. In the meantime, let's check it down. Had the Big Ten college basketball doubleheader on last night. First game, Indiana beats Maryland 84-66. Lamar Wilkerson scored 24 points. Tatum Conaway, 19 points, 8 rebounds. Connor Enright, your guy, you call him Joe Dirt, 16 points, Kevin. Reed Bailey, 15 points, 6 rebounds. They are now 12-3, 3-1 in the Big Ten. They will play a big game at Assembly Saturday, against Nebraska at noon. I wanted this to be Friday so bad.
A big home game against Nebraska. We have a big IU football game on January 9th, and we have a big home basketball game against Nebraska. What year is this? What planet are we on?
What are they?
Do you guys believe in real life on other planets?
I don't know. Do you believe in shifting timelines? Because we might be in one.
Well, I'll say this. If there is other life out there, they're not coming here to pay bills with us, so they'll stay away.
What? Hire Kurt Signetti to be the mayor of Mars. Or whatever.
They might take a look at that.
Dictator, honestly.
Also last night, 5th-ranked Purdue, an 81-73 win at Mackey. They beat Washington by 8, but they led by 22 at one point and really just kind of coasted home. Braden Smith, big night, was honored as the Big Ten's all-time assist leader before the game, then went out and scored 23 points, 7 assists. But, James, he did have foul trouble in the first half, had to sit down with 3 fouls, and he did turn the ball over 6 times. He would probably tell you it was not his best game, but he still helped get it done. Yeah, and that is the beauty of being a very balanced team. He gives you his B game, and they still win that game pretty handedly. So excited to see how they continue building throughout the rest of the season. Trey Kaufman-Renn also had 14 points and 14 rebounds. He shot a one-legged banker off the glass last night. I was watching.
He's got some quirky shots.
That was the most old man move I've seen.
Well, remember the game winner against IU last year? It was like a shot put from like 15 feet.
But it works.
He can hoop, man.
Yeah, it works. By the way, they are now 14-1 overall, 4-0 in the Big Ten. They will play Saturday at 2 p.m. against Penn State. College football semifinals, we've been talking about that all morning long. Tonight, the first game in Glendale, Arizona from the Fiesta Bowl. Miami, Ole Miss, 7:30 p.m. on ESPN. The Hurricanes are favored by 3.5 points, but of course Mississippi with, as I've been saying all morning long, quarterback Trinidad Chambliss. You get one of those playmaking quarterbacks, man, it can change everything in the matter of 2 series because he just does crazy things sometimes, James. Be fun to watch.
Oh, for sure.
All right. Indiana versus Oregon tomorrow night in the second semifinal game at the Peach Bowl in Atlanta. Hoosiers also favored by 3.5 points, and that one starts at 7:30 p.m. And we'll talk to Sean McDonough, who will have the play-by-play on ESPN tomorrow, Kevin. So one of my favorite people in this business, by the way.
Yeah, we had him on a lot last year. I think before, I want to say I feel like he did every Notre Dame game during the playoffs. He was on with us a ton. So, yes, we'll chat with him coming up tomorrow, 8 o'clock, the television voice of the Peach Bowl.
Pacers and Hornets play tonight as well. That'll be in Charlotte. The Pacers trying to snap that 13-game losing streak. You'll hear that game live beginning at 6:30 with the pregame and Pat Boylan and company. And then at 7 p.m., Mark Boyle takes over with the play-by-play. And in the NBA, big trade Atlanta sends Trae Young to Washington, JB, for C.J. McCollum and Corey Kispert. Maybe a change of scenery helps everybody there.
Maybe. We'll see. I think the Wizards are doing some interesting things out there in the nation's capital.
They've been better this year. Anything else you want to throw in, Kevin, before we get to the break?
Yeah, shout out to Braylon Mullins. Again, we mentioned in the first hour, 24 points last night for the Mr. Basketball for UConn. That was a wild game, them coming back to win at Providence. So some early season injuries for him, but he has been pretty good, and that probably is game of the year so far. Really, it was a fun night of college hoops outside. Indiana and Purdue didn't have a super entertaining night. I know a lot of fans in this market always love to see Kentucky lose a home game. They lost to Missouri last night inside of Rupp. So, oh boy. Mark Pope and the old, how much is that roster worth in Lexington? What's the return on that investment?
Not yet, unless they get it together during conference play over the next 8 weeks. Not yet. All right, coming up next, we will talk to the Butler head coach. That's Thad Matta. Joins us every Thursday morning, and that'll be on your speakers as we continue next on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
We Grow Hair Indy. They're the gold standard when it comes to hair restoration. That would be the northwest side, building number 2 at the Pyramids. And just honestly, if you've never visited their website, head there, wegrowhairindy.com. I think you'll see plenty of before and after pictures and videos that explain to you what they can offer. One of the bigger questions I had was, okay, is this something that, all of a sudden you offer one thing and you just, okay, yeah, no matter what your situation is, you're going to get that one procedure, one, surgery. And no, it's not that. They're going to cater something that speaks to your situation. Where are your issues? And we'll attack that in the best way that we can. So, those types of answers that I got from them, I think those are all very important, of course, when you're making such a decision. So, seek them out. Free evaluation, private evaluation, virtual evaluation, all of that is available to you. Again, that is We Grow Hair Indy, the gold standard for hair restoration.
Good morning. Later on tonight, the Indiana Pacers will play at 7 p.m. on the road against the Charlotte Hornets. Airtime 6:30 here on The Fan. Kevin, I did see where the Pacers are going to bring back Tony Bradley on a 10-day contract after releasing him last week.
Yeah, the mechanics, I guess we'd ask Scott Agnes when he joins us coming up at 9. But, I think the Micah Potter experience has gone really well for those that haven't watched the Pacers much here recently. Him joining, and I think he's been a really, honestly, an important piece right now. And Isaiah Jackson, that concussion continues to linger. So I think some of the semantics around or logistics, probably the better word to use, around why the Pacers are doing that.
And James, of the 6 wins the Pacers have been able to put together this year, one of them came earlier this year against the Charlotte Hornets. Got that going on for you tonight.
We'll find something positive, I guess, to pull out of that.
Yeah, I like what Rick has said about this team, though. Despite the losing that's gone on, and they have the worst record in the NBA right now, he does feel like his team has, for the most part, been giving it up every single night. They just keep having different lineups and injuries and all kinds of crazy things going on all the time.
Yes and no. He's been critical of their effort, though, at times in the way they're connected. So I don't want to act like he's all rosy about how hard they fight. I think that's been a point of emphasis for him as of late, Kevin. We actually talked about that with him this past week.
Yeah, and I, if you would have given me the list of injuries at the start of the year, I still probably would have expected them to be higher than 6 wins. Like, I think that's kind of a fair statement. I mean, they've caught a lot of breaks. Obviously, their injury situation speaks for itself, but they've caught a lot of breaks on the other side of it. Guys missing. Donovan Mitchell the other night. Tyler Hero, Bam Adebayo a few games ago. Franz Wagner, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah.
All right, let's check in on college basketball again, as we do every Thursday morning at 8:30 a.m. We speak to the head coach of the Butler Bulldogs, one of our favorites, Thad Matta, joining us now on the Payless Liquors hotline. Good morning, Thad. I hope you're doing well this morning. How are things going?
So far, so good. It's one of those days where we got to get better today, and so life's good. We're in a little bit of a skid right now. We played some really, really good teams, but focusing on us and getting better.
Coach, you see any similarities from the second half of Villanova, the second half from St. John's? Obviously, first half's pretty good there. Anything that you saw in both those second halves where the games got away from you?
In the Villanova game, I think it was more of just the inability to put the ball in the basket. I thought we had some unbelievable looks, and give Villanova credit, they got hot, which is a very talented team, and we'd seen they were capable of doing that, and probably tied our offense to our defense there. The St. John's game, it was just a matter of really taking care of the basketball. I mean, we shot 50% for the game, but had 20 turnovers, and so many of those were just really kind of unforced. And you play a team like St. John's, they're great at turning teams over, so you're going to turn it over, but it was probably just the ones that were unforced more so that really, really hurt us. I mean, we're down 5 with 8 minutes to go, and had a segment there with against the press where we turned it over 2 times in a row. So those are things we gotta continue to work on and get better.
Thad, when you look at your point guard spot this year, I know Stink Robertson got the start against St. John's, and boy, that is quite the start for a freshman against that sort of pressure. But how would you evaluate him and your other ball handlers in areas that they can get better?
Well, I think that's an area where we got to continue to grow. I mean, hey, we don't have Jalen Jackson, and that was in the plan of having a guy that played in 130 college basketball games, and him kind of running the team, and so now I think for Xavier and Fosa and even Yame, those guys have got to continue to hone in on running a team, taking care of the basketball, and all of them play hard, and you see the growth in them, which is exciting. But like you said, you look at the teams we played thus far, the 5 Big East games, and arguably the 5 best teams in the Big East, and so I think as they continue to develop, get experience, it's going to do nothing but help them.
Coach, we all watch guys like Finley Bizjack and Michael Ajayi, and they just keep coming up big for you again and again. You talked about growth and development a minute ago. Outside of those 2 guys, who are the guys that have really started to step up for you, and you're like, hey, I trust this guy a lot more than I did at the beginning of the season?
Well, it's funny. At this stage, you trust them all because it is what it is. And I think I like the way Drayton and Johan. I mean, you're getting consistency out of those guys just in terms of their level of play. I think Jamie, is continuing to grow. All these guys. Our biggest issue is we got to have everybody playing really well every time we take the court. You know what I mean? And that's our margin for error is slim. So I think that's the challenge of, as I told the guys after the game the other night, you're going to be a better basketball player on Wednesday when we play Xavier, and we're going to be a better basketball team. That's the only option we have.
And that's Thad Matta and Butler. A little bit of time off here, as you said, at Xavier. They got coming up next week. I think you've kind of hinted at it, Thad, maybe in the last couple answers, but given the Jalen Jackson injury, it just seems like right now there's so much pressure on Finley Bizjack and Michael Ajayi to be whatever for you from a scoring standpoint every night. You're right there in the game. Michael picks up his fourth foul the other night, and it starts to get away from you. Do you feel like there is a ton of pressure on those two to deliver for you night in and night out, and they probably are atop the opposing scouting report?
Well, without a doubt, there's no question. And Michael was in foul trouble at the Creighton game when we got back in that thing and had a chance to win it. So yeah, I mean, but that's kind of what they sign up for, I think. And we got to continue to get creative and find ways to help them be the best version of themselves.
Talk about not playing again until Wednesday. At this point in the season, how beneficial is it to have like a whole week to kind of work on your team, your game?
Well, there's good and bad to everything, right? And we come out off of this week, and I think we got 4 games in 8 days, and so we need to get into practice today and get back to really honing in, because what happens is you get going from game to game to game, and it's very easy to lose sight of your principles, your fundamentals, because every team, the difference between St. John's, the difference between Villanova, the difference between Creighton, and so your game preps a lot of times are just so different because of what the opponent presents. And I think that's where we got a week here to get back to focusing in on our fundamentals and what we have to do to get better.
One more from me, Coach Thad, and looking at one of your more unique situations with Jack McCaffrey, I'm reading about, or I read about how he had gone through kind of a unique situation, getting his wisdom teeth removed and, having an infection throughout that whole process and working his way back. So where is he in the recovery process, and how have you kind of helped him navigate what has turned out to obviously not be the freshman year he probably envisioned coming into this year?
Yeah, I tell you, when you talk about bad luck, that was one of the weirdest. I didn't get my wisdom teeth till I was out till I was like 40, and my wife tricked me. I went in to get one out, and they took all 4 out. But long story short, it was an unfortunate situation, and it really, really set him back. He lost like 25 pounds, and in the 2 weeks that he was sick, I mean, he couldn't eat, couldn't open his mouth, and so he's slowly getting back into it. But it's just where we are in the stage of the season, it's tough for him, but tough kid, and I don't know exactly when he can be back to full speed. He's not doing a ton right now, just just physically not in shape, and hopefully we get him back sooner than later.
Coach, I know it's a 24/7 job that you have, especially this time of year, but as a sports fan, is there any opportunity for you to even check out like these college football playoff semifinals?
It's funny. I'm like one of the biggest college football fans there is, and what Indiana is doing right now. Obviously, I spent a year down there, and so happy for Scott Dolson and Indiana, and rooting for those guys like crazy.
Well, have fun, Coach, this week. Good luck getting your team together again, and we'll keep an eye on it, and we'll talk to you again next Thursday.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
There you go, Butler Bulldogs. He talked about those 4 games coming up in 8 days after this kind of mini break here at Xavier, at Seton Hall, home against DePaul, and then home against Marquette, and that all comes between next Wednesday and the following Friday. So they will be very busy again very soon. And I was watching that game the other night, and it was that second half. It was just turnovers. St. John's had a lot to do with that, but they just couldn't get the ball up the floor at times.
Yeah, again, without Jalen Jackson, who was one of the better players in the Horizon League last year, transferred in from Fort Wayne, it's so much pressure on Stink Robinson, especially to be the point guard. Really, a lot of it, I think, you're kind of playing guys out of position here. So Michael Jai, Finley Bizjack, the pressure is immense. Again, they're still hovering right there on that bubble, so it's not like this is DEFCON time, but the urgency is going to be there. The Big East has opportunities, doesn't have as many opportunities as other conferences to pad that resume, but I think Butler's margin for error is really, really shrunk here with that Jalen Jackson injury.
All right, coming up in a moment, we'll talk more about Chris Ballard getting ready to meet with the media at 11 o'clock this morning. We're just 2 hours and 20 minutes away from that. We've also got Pacers discussion with Scott Agnes coming up at the top of the hour as they try to get it going again, and we'll take some of your thoughts, phone calls, and texts in the next 10, 15 minutes or so right here at 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. Good morning, everyone. Welcome into a Thursday. Caleb Zuver on the other side of glass this morning. Caleb, you having a good time? Done a great job so far, filling in for Mark.
You guys know I always have a great time being here, man. It just feels awesome to be here right before James and Kevin. Get to send them off right into the long road that is West 56th Street, and they get to do their thing. I can't wait.
We were waiting for your analysis on Ohio State's game this week.
Yeah. And unfortunately, they don't have a game. I don't know where they're playing. I don't know who they're playing. They're in the portal, I guess.
Hanging out with Lane Kiffin this week. I don't know what that is going on. James Boyd, Kevin Bowen also in here today. I'm Jeff Rickard, and you guys will both be at the 11 a.m. press conference for Chris Ballard a little bit later on this morning, and we're getting a lot of suggestions for questions on the text line this morning. Ben says, I would love for someone to ask Chris Ballard today. Last year at your end-of-the-year presser, you said, quote, today's compromises become tomorrow's standard. How would you describe the standard you have set this past year leading the organization? It's a fair question, I think.
Gosh, did he really say that?
He did not say that.
No, that's what Ben said. So.
Yeah, but he didn't say that. But
that sounds like a very un-Chris Ballard
I was
thing
like,
to
yeah,
say.
that definitely
maybe
happened.
he did say
We
it.
had a couple of curse words in there, but along those lines, paraphrasing the question a bit. Yeah, I think it's a fair question. What is your standard? And is it heightened at all? I want to get into the whole urgency thing. How do you feel that? Is it you feel more urgency because you're going into the final year of your contract for the first time in your career? Is it more on the field based because it is a 5-year drought now, which is now the third longest streak in the NFL? I believe it was the fourth until the Panthers actually made it recently. So, yeah, I'm very curious to know his thoughts on that.
Yeah, urgency, given his resume, James, almost sounds like your buddy that has 45 credits in its second semester senior year and he needs to graduate. It's like, wait a minute, shouldn't the urgency have been there maybe when you had 9 credits after your freshman year or, 15 credits midway through your sophomore? Like something along those lines. I don't really understand all of a sudden. Here we are, entering year 10, urgency. That's got to be higher. It's like, well, where were we in year 5, year 6, year 7, year 8? That to me doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And is urgency strictly praying to the football gods? Or is there more? Is there more action? This gets back into the conversation we had to lead off the show today. One thing I am curious, I get that Ballard, given the resume, you can only defend so much, which is hardly anything he can really defend on his resume. But this time last year, we did walk out of the Chris Ballard press conference, and, defensive change was about to happen. I kind of forget if Gus Bradley was already fired or not, but that obviously happened. And then he said he was going to do things differently in free agency. So is there anything speaking to that sort of actionable stuff that we hear today? That would be something that I am curious about because they just don't have as many, when you bring up how much cap space they have, they don't have a first-round pick. They've got north of $50 million. I think a lot of that's got to go to the quarterback and the top wideout. So, how much are Daniel Jones and Alec Pierce eating up of that? So, how much can they really retool things?
Unless I'm mistaken, I believe the record in 9 seasons is 70, 78, and 1. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, it's right.
So you've been back for 9 seasons and you're 8 games under 500.
That's when we get into the debate of, is it, as Kevin said, a 9-year resume you're looking at or a 1-year resume? Is it the first 8 years versus the last year? And clearly, Carly Ursay-Gordon and her sisters, the Colts tri-owners at this point, made it clear that they believe, or wanted to rather, weigh this year more than the others.
Did you get any... we've talked a little bit about locker room clean-out from earlier in the week. What was your impression of Alec Pierce and the season he had and the uncertainty now as he enters his first free agency?
The season he had was incredible. Whenever you can reach 1,000 yards on 47 catches, it lets you know you're doing something right when it comes to the big play ability. And in addition to leading the league in yards per reception, again, back-to-back years, he also showed, I thought, Kevin, that he was a complete receiver with some of the underneath stuff, crossing routes, and he's always been a good contested catch guy. So from that perspective, great season. earned a massive raise wherever he goes. But talking to him, I got the impression that he will listen to all parties. And unless you tag him, it's not a foregone conclusion that he'll be back. Yeah, and I get the whole, he's like the homegrown talent, the Midwest kid. Midwest kids can leave for millions of dollars. I would do it if I had the opportunity, given, where he is in his career. I don't want to act like, it's all about, well, he grew up here and he's used to the small town vibe or the small-ish big city that Indianapolis is. Nobody cares about that in free agency. He can go somewhere, i.e. the Bills or the Chiefs or somewhere where, one, you have a quarterback that's going to be there for years to come, and then two, you're going to get the ball down the field.
Yeah, I am, when it comes to Pierce, assuming they're able to, give Daniel Jones some sort of actual contract, whatever, 2 years, insert your money here. I almost, when I hear Pierce discuss his future and, whatever, possibly being on the open market, I think, the recruiting angle, if you will, of almost feeling like you're back in college again. There's part of me that's like, wait, is it not just a moot point? Don't you just slap the franchise tag on him and move on? And I know people then have followed up with, well, could it be a hold-in? Could it be a holdout? We obviously see that around the NFL on occasion, but I guess I would be very, to summarize the whole Pierce thing up for me, I'd be very surprised if he's not a Colt week 1. And I'm not necessarily saying that means a 3-year, $100-something million deal, but I just think that, and 100 maybe is a little bit too much there, obviously, but, you just slap the franchise tag on him, and I think there's enough here that he is okay with, Daniel Jones. I think he, enjoys whatever being here, that he'll just play on that franchise tag.
So then here's my question. I think the franchise tag, last time I checked, for wide receivers in 2026 is projected to be $28 million. That's your baseline if I'm Alec Pierce in negotiations. Give me that $28 million guaranteed. Now, I want more guaranteed money on top of that, but my annual salary will not be any lower than 28. And are you willing to pay that?
Right.
Now, I will say,
push that problem next offseason, I guess.
I was going to say, he has a ton of leverage. Yeah, you're right about that. It could just be a 1-year deal. But he also has a lot of leverage in saying that, one, he doesn't have leverage. Let me back up. You don't have leverage from the franchise tag standpoint, because once they tag you, you have to show up and work. That is what you're going to get paid for that year. But going forward, he could just say, well, I'll continue to play this thing out, and if my production isn't, or my production is great again, you either have to tag me again or give me the money that I already asked for, which, again, at minimum will be $28 million annually.
Yeah. Brayton writes in 2 questions for you guys, and I think I know the answer to the first one, certainly. But to what extent do you think Ballard is really running the franchise? And 2, who would the top candidates to be if you brought in an executive vice president of football operations to help Carly Ursay-Gordon out? Kind of somebody over Chris Ballard there. I don't. You answer those questions. I'll let you, James.
I don't even know how to answer those because I haven't given it much thought. They're not going to hire a president, so me entertaining the idea of them bringing one in, I don't even know how that whole thing works. I mean, how many teams in the NFL even have that? So I don't know. Bad radio, but I really don't know.
Yeah, no, I think I think it's the right answer, though.
I've always felt, in regards to the team president idea, that's a lot of cooks in the kitchen. It's just a lot of, okay, who is in control of the roster? Is it the GM and the president's just simply overseeing that? Or is the team president naturally going to have some say on the roster? Then go to the head coach. How much say does the head coach have in personnel? None. The head coach just shows up every week and, hey, this is what we're going to have on Sundays, and these are the 46 guys dressing to play for me. And then naturally ownership, are they truly going to sit that out? Or are they inevitably going to have some sort of whatever? Hey, we need to, who's green-lighting the Sauce Gardner trade? Does the GM have full control on that? Or does the team president have to sign off? Does the team president then have full control on that? Or does the owner also have to sign off? I just think it's a lot. I
think part of the question probably comes from the fact that the perception, and you guys can speak more to the reality than I can, the perception was always that, yes, Chris Ballard was running the show, but that Jim Irsay had a pretty big say in how things went.
Yeah, I mean, I think Irsay had quarterbacks say and sign off on a Sauce Gardner trade, but I don't think Irsay necessarily was deciding that Latu was going to be the draft pick or Kwity Paye was going to be the draft pick. I mean, I think they're all kind of lines to be drawn in terms of where the decisions are made and where they're not. So, I think, as long as you have a competent GM, then I think everything can kind of fall into place nicely with the head coach. Then underneath that, I don't think necessarily you need someone above that.
All right, coming up in a moment, we'll talk Pacers. They are trying to get rid of that losing streak tonight. They have made one player personnel move over the last 24 hours. We'll find out about that and other things from Scott Agnes from Fieldhouse Files. That's next on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. First semifinal for the college football playoff comes your way tonight. Ole Miss, Miami, and tomorrow night it'll be Oregon against the Indiana Hoosiers. You'll be able to hear that Hoosier game beginning tomorrow night right here on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan at 6:30 p.m. The game itself kicks off at 7:30. Listen to Don Fisher, or you can watch it on ESPN with Sean McDonough at 7:30. We'll have Sean McDonough on tomorrow. Right now, though, we're talking some Indiana Pacers basketball along with Kevin Bowen and James Boyd. I'm Jeff Rickard. Caleb Zuber behind the glass. And on the Payless Liquors hotline right now, the one, the only Scott Agnes. Good morning, Scott. Welcome in to a whole brand new year for NBA for you.
Yeah, that's right. Good morning, guys. Appreciate it.
Always good to talk to you. Tony Bradley coming back on a 10-day contract. They're looking for any answers up front right now, aren't they?
Yeah, it's one of those situations while the center position was kind of incomplete for this group entering the season, right? We all knew that. Rick Carlisle had talked about how it was center by committee. Now they've really felt it, especially in the last month as multiple players have battled injury. And what does it say about the center position, Jeff, where you're bringing back a player who's not even 100%, fractured tip of his shooting thumb on his right side, but they just need some kind of depth and help there. So that's the reason why there. But on the positive side, as you've seen Micah Potter really establish himself as a solid role player and earned a fully guaranteed contract for the rest of the season.
Scott, I'm going to yank the wheel here for a second. How was the Rose Bowl?
So it was phenomenal. Nothing but great things to say. About the whole experience, how nice everyone was. I mean, didn't really even run into any Alabama fans, Kevin. It was remarkable. It was truly like 75, 80% IU fans, no doubt about that. The only, I guess, negative, if you will, other than getting in and out, which is known for where it is and that experience, is that all that rain in the morning, you'll appreciate this maybe more than anyone, made it feel like an Indy 500 race day in the morning. We were trudging through mud, and there were lines and all those different things, but we were trained for all that, I think.
Are you, do you expect kind of the same fan discrepancy, if you will, tomorrow night? Because I think it'll be massive for Indiana down there.
I do too. I'm not sure if it'll be that at that level, just because I don't think Oregon fans are as content or maybe used to this necessarily, maybe as much as an Alabama program that has been the team for the last 20 years, and they can't assume anything, whereas I'm sure there were some Alabama fans with the old stereotype of Indiana who were assuming things. And the other thing, if you listen to IU, what they have to say, I think they say Atlanta's the third largest city for IU alums. And so, yes, I expect it to be massive. The Big Red warm-up that the Alumni Association has sold out several days ago. I'm really looking forward to seeing what it looks like for you.
Okay, back to Pacers talk. Scott Agnes, Fieldhouse Files, with us here. How much should this year for Benedict Mathurin matter when it comes to trade conversations? Obviously, entering the year, you were asking him to do things differently with, of course, Tyrese Halliburton's injury. Now Mathurin, who really wasn't hurt that much early in his career, has suffered two injuries that have sidelined him. It sounds like he's tried to play through that. Rick Carlisle, I think, acknowledged that when he joined us back on Tuesday. So how much do you think it should, and I guess will, impact trade talks here as the deadline is less than a month away?
Well, I think usually when you're trying to add a guy of this caliber, you're looking for him to be maybe that final piece or the guy that helps seal a patch and be the patch to seal something later in the season when you have those championship aspirations. The other way I could see it is for a younger team that has cap space that they're willing to use this year. Either way, I think it'll have some impact, mostly in consideration for will the team be willing to give an extension for next year, and what will that look like? The reality is we have not really even seen a healthy Benedict Mathurin because that turf toe happened in game 2 of the season, and any player will tell you that is a miserable injury. It's something you just have to not do anything and take it easy for a couple of months. But that adds the complexity, KB, to this season because he's in a contract year. He wants to raise his ceiling even more, whether it's with the Pacers or elsewhere. And so he's played through that. This right thumb injury happened basically about a month ago is what I was told. And he continued to try to play through it. That mostly explains a lot of the shooting woes that we've seen from him. But I think ultimately both both sides said, hey, look, this is not productive. We want you to be healthy. Let's sit you on the bench and allow you to get rest. But from the trade conversation piece of it, if he is included because he's in a contract year, I think it's certainly got to have some impact, but nothing significant.
Again, we're talking to Scott Agnes here on the Payless Liquors Hotline. You can check him out at fieldhousefiles.com. Scott, when I look at the makeup of the Pacers and their losing streak right now, I always look at the draft board as well. I don't know if this has been as early as I've been on tankathon.com.
Yeah.
But they'll never throw in the towel, and I don't expect that to happen for Rick Carlisle. But how realistic do you think they are in knowing that they have to find, perhaps in this upcoming draft, a centerpiece to put around Halliburton?
Yeah, that's significant. I think I would go a step further. I want to see that more of that 6'8" wing. I want to see that player that is the modern style of what we've seen with basketball over the last decade. I think you can get your center in different ways, whether that's in free agency. There's always a handful to choose from, certainly, James. On the other side, there's also some teams that probably are in the Pacers spot where a guy's not getting playing time. And I mean, Pacers from about 3 years ago when they had 6 centers on their roster. There's always that type of situation. Goga Batadze, Daniel Tice as well. Now, you could argue how high of ceiling does that player need to be when you have those championship aspirations back for next season. So I just prioritize. I think wings are the hardest player to get at all. So if that player is there, I'm certainly prioritizing that over a center, say, in the draft. But, yeah, that's been one of the big issues for this team this season. I think everybody underappreciated the stability that Miles Turner brought for the past 10 years. Was he perfect? Absolutely not. But he was vocal. He protected the rim, and that's something that's really been absent all season long.
Yeah, to clarify, when I said centerpiece, I meant exactly what you meant. Go get one of the players in the draft. And definitely an issue up front with center. But, I mean, to be frank for myself, I'm looking at Darren Peterson, A.J. DeBanza, Cameron Boozer, and anybody else who's in that top 5 range for this team. And you said something interesting there at the end there, Scott. How much do you believe this team can return to contending next year? Because I'm not going to lie, watching this unfold, and I get it, a lot of injuries have happened, I wonder how much more tweaking needs to be done besides adding potentially a top 5 pick and a healthy Halliburton.
Yeah, for me, it starts with having that modern style player. I get you now entirely. We're on the same page with all of that. One of the things is you're seeing T.J. McConnell become more limited, right? Is he playing in back-to-backs? That's something of concern, but I think you can add more of a ball-handling type player, a combo guard. They have that, specifically probably in a guy like Cam Jones. And then you start to think about Pascal Siakam, because at this point in the season, you want to be conscious of his minutes, knowing that he's a little bit older, but he's still in his prime and absolutely still contributing. So I do think, given full health or just about that and key players back, that the Pacers will absolutely be back in the conversation for a chance. I mean, just look at the top of the standings. You have the Pistons team that has not done anything leading the Eastern Conference. The Celtics, without Tatum, are able to rely on their depth a lot more. Jaylen Brown shines there at the top of the East. Even Philly, who I've never been a great believer in, is there in the top 6. So that's a big reason why I think this season stings even more, James, right? Because Pacers would absolutely, I think, be a top 4 team right now.
Yes.
If they mostly had all that health, and in turn they don't. What I do wonder about is the leadership aspect and everything. Are they missing James Johnson right now during a 13-game win streak? Only the locker room, I think, can tell you that.
Talking to Scott Agnes, Fieldhouse Files here on the Payless Liquors hotline. And we were talking about Benedict Mathurin a few moments ago, but we had a trade yesterday in the NBA. Trae Young goes to Washington, and Washington sends back C.J. McCollum and Corey Kispert. Overall, are there a lot of moves that the Pacers really even can make at this point in time?
I don't think so, because what do teams want? Other teams, they want things of value and of players that have been contributing, and they know exactly what they can get for these guys. And the reality is the Pacers have been shuffling their lineup all season long. 24 different players have suited up, all those different things. And so that's why I think the natural conversation piece for all of us is mentioning Mathurin, given his upside, given how young he is, and the fact that he's going into a second contract, and sometimes teams don't necessarily want to pay that. And the other big thing we need to point out here is the Pacers have played most of their players in the last couple of years. One of the big talking points with Miles Turner is how much, if at all, are you willing to go into the salary tax? So that conversation has to be had all over again right now when you deal with Mathurin. Now, you mentioned the trade last night. I think that's kind of relevant to the point of the Wizards were looking at having significant salary cap space, like $80 million, which means they would probably have easily a $30 million to burn, let's say, or utilize on a Mathurin. Pelicans are going to have this expiring contract with C.J. McCollum. So if you're looking at teams that would have money that could make an offer to Mathurin in restricted free agency, these are two of the teams you're watching, in addition to you're watching their record, because they're right there with the Pacers at the bottom of the league standings.
Scott, give me a random IU football player you've thought about during this run. I think about
Charlie. Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, no, you're a fan, man. You go back. You didn't. You are a legit fan. That's why I'm dialing this question up for you. I always loved how Peyton Ramsey would always QB sneak it like off the right tackle. It seemed to work literally every time. Wap Fillier popped into my head the other day. Tandon Doss, he was kind of around you and I's age.
Mm-hmm.
Jamie Curlew was such a great pass rusher back in the day for him.
Oh man.
So yeah, any random IU football player that's popped into your mind here?
I go to Ben Chappell. He was there. He was the quarterback when I was
local townie,
local
right?
guy. Yep, and he was there at the heat of it under Billy Lynch when I was transcribing Billy Lynch's quotes while volunteering in the sports information office. And to that relevancy, he was at the game in Pasadena, so I saw him there down on the field. He's probably the first name other than Antoine Randall, who kind of was the first guy I truly remember with my fandom and getting his jersey and all those different things. But yeah, this is, as everybody knows, this is beyond IU fans' wildest dreams. You hope for 6-7 wins, you hoped for a bowl game, and that was it. And now, you're on top of the world, and why would they go anywhere else right now? There's no reason.
Was the quarterback Richard Legault, who wore number 21, was that his name a few years back?
I remember that name, yeah.
I swore he wore 21, which we had that this year. The BYU quarterback was wearing some wild jersey number as well. I'm like, man, I don't know, maybe.
I just looked it up real fast. He was 21. I did not remember that fact.
I always thought, Chappell was great, but man, I thought Kellen Lewis was so damn dynamic. I mean, boy, and I know there was probably, some stuff off the field, but boy, I thought Kellen Lewis, you want to talk about a special talent.
IU always had those athletes at quarterback and good players. Sure. They always had it at receiver. And then I always felt like it was either safety or like linebacker. And the point of what they've done, though, recently, obviously, is bulk up the line. And as Fernando Mendoza has mentioned many times, that's what's been a big game changer under his time here.
Scott, thanks. Have fun on this ride with Indiana. Great job covering the Pacers all the time. We'll talk to you again soon.
Appreciate it. Heading down there today. Thanks, guys.
Which way you going, by the way? You flying?
No, making the drive.
Which way are you going? You going through, we were talking about this, Knoxville or Nashville?
Usually Nashville. I have not finalized the plans, but I assume that's the route.
All right, buddy. Have fun.
All right, thanks, guys.
There you go. Scott Agnes on the Payless Liquors Hotline.
I was going to say,
James is like, avoid Nashville at all costs.
Yeah.
Those bachelorette parties, they can start on a Monday.
Lord
knows they're starting on a Thursday.
Yeah, last time I was in Nashville, that's when Joey Erickson had his jug of beer. So
was that IU Illinois?
That was IU Illinois, and I kid you not, and I have to get the name of this Colts staffer. It's one of the equipment guys. See him all the time in the locker room and stuff like that. We're out at this bar watching the game.
Oh, I remember when he was talking to you at a Colts practice. He was talking some you-know-what to you.
Yeah, and he came over and was like, Hoosiers? And I was like, oh, man, I didn't even know you were here. So I had to eat a lot of crow that night.
Yeah, he was chirping at you in the end zone that one day in the indoor facility.
I chirped for a month, so I earned that.
That's what I love about you. As petty as you are, you accept the pettiness back.
Hey, you got to stand on that.
So this Washington QB, thank you, Hoosier 97, he is flirting with LSU. Is that the thought here?
Yes.
Oh, I did not know that. The plot thickens.
Yeah, and Lane Kiffin.
Oh, boy.
Boy, man, the Lane Kiffin hate train.
Did you see Jimbo Fisher talking about Lane Kiffin?
I'll tell you what.
I did see that. He snapped on him.
September 19th next year, LSU at Ole Miss. Oh, my word.
We might need like Homeland Security for that game.
You're going to have to, you're going to have to put that man in Secret Service is going to have to get him in and out of that town.
Think about this, though. In the SEC, can you imagine the negative recruiting that's going to go on against Lane Kiffin and LSU when they talk to every kid and go, you think he cares about you? You think he cares about his kids? He had his kids in the college football playoff, leaves them at the doorstep of that, and then doesn't want to give them their best chance to win, says, no, all my assistants have to come with me. They're no longer a part of that.
And then LSU puts another digit on the check they'll give you to come play for them, and you'll go play for them anyway.
But Mississippi can do that too, probably.
Nah, they're not hanging with LSU from NIL.
Maybe not, but
they're not hanging.
I'm just saying the negative recruiting for a lot of kids is gonna pay. I don't think it's gonna go as well as people think for him now.
If we were in any other market outside of whatever Eugene, Miami, right now, if we were in any other market, I would be all in on Ole Miss winning this title.
Yeah.
I mean, all freaking in.
Do you think Lane Kiffin
I
is
do
all
want them
in?
to win tonight.
No, hell no. Lane Kiffin is not all in. He's
He gets
bitter.
money for them winning.
cares.
No, no. He's got ego more than money.
He would rather them lose.
He wants a
without
loss
him.
1,000%.
Yeah.
The portal's still open. He wants all those assistants back in Baton Rouge.
So which one does he want? Do you want them to lose sooner or later?
Sooner.
Get to the national championship so I get all my bonuses up until the last one. And
I
then
think he's
He's
okay
doing
with
the
the
belt
money
to you know
department.
what with
Yeah.
Michael Irvin on the sideline tonight.
that is true. And shout out to Michael Irvin. I don't know where he gets the energy from, but he is my favorite football player of all time for reasons that are not related to football.
He is entertaining on the
Just
sideline.
a hilarious human being.
He and Ray Lewis hanging out together again on the sidelines tonight.
Possibly, but I wouldn't want to hang out with him. That sounds like a lot.
We need Edge. We need some IU fans partying with Edge in the clubs in Miami next week.
Best smile going, right?
I don't think I've ever seen Edge without shades. Shout out to that man. He's always having a good time.
All right, let's check it down, Caleb, and get ready to go for later today. And later today is a press conference over at West 56 with Chris Ballard addressing the media. That comes your way at 11 a.m. We will carry most of it or a lot of it here on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. Kevin Bowen, what's going to happen at this press conference, do you think? Is it more of the same, or do we get anything new, relevant, different?
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll largely be more of the same. But, you know, again, are there actionable items that he feels like is necessary? I mean, I do really believe this about Ballard. I do think he's one of the more candid GMs across the league. And, you know, that last year at this time, he said, all right, free agency, I need to do things differently. Are there any of those, like very specific things that he feels like needs to change? Or does he sit here and say, you know what? I changed last year. I did things differently. And then injuries happen.
That's probably where it goes, I would think.
Well, and obviously that would create a lot of disappointment with some fans out there. But that's kind of how Carly Gordon went on Monday. So will Chris Ballard follow suit later today?
James, I'll ask you this. I know the next game doesn't happen in a preseason sense until the middle of August, and the first game isn't, you know, we're still 9 months away from that. But do we get any kind of injury sense, whether it's Daniel Jones or how DeForest Buckner is recovering or those kinds of things, or Mooney? No, I'm just wondering, long term, what are we thinking on some of those bigger injuries?
Yeah, I really don't know. I would say Daniel Jones is for sure going to be the quarterback, I would think, in 2026. Now, is it from week one? I'm not sure about that. That's why the Riley Leonard question, or that the Riley Leonard decision comes into it. The Anthony Richardson future question comes into it. But as far as Javarius Ward and DeForest Buckner, I don't think that we'll get concrete answers on those for quite some time. I know DeForest Buckner posted yesterday on his Instagram that next year he will be, quote, complete, which indicates he would like to return and play. But again, the Colts have a lot of decisions to make regarding his future, considering how much money he'll make, and he's coming off neck surgery.
All right, we'll take a look at that. 11 a.m. this morning. You'll hear some of it right here on 93.5, 107.5 The Fan. College football semifinals get underway tonight. Glendale, Arizona, the Fiesta Bowl, Miami and Ole Miss. And right now, Miami is favored by 3.5 points. That one starts at 7:30 p.m. You can watch it on ESPN. And then, of course, tomorrow night at the Peach Bowl, Indiana and Oregon in Atlanta. That's also a 7:30 p.m. kick time. Hoosiers favored by 3.5. You can listen to it here at 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan if you can't find a TV set. We will talk to the TV play-by-play man, Sean McDonough, tomorrow about this game. Hoosiers also favored by 3.5 points. Kevin, does that seem low right now?
I think it should be a little higher. Yeah.
What are you thinking, 5.5?
Yeah. That's where I would go. Again, I'll go back to the first game. I know a lot of people, it's hard to beat a team twice. Most penalized game of the season for Indiana. Charlie Becker had not really established. Honestly, low-key, that Elijah Surratt injury might have been one of the best things for Indiana this season because it allowed Charlie Becker to get these opportunities. And now, good luck having your third corner guard Charlie Becker in the game because that's pretty much what Indiana has created offensively. I get that Indiana made a long field goal. Oregon missed kind of a shortish one in that game, but still, I felt like Indiana was the better team in that contest. And if I had to give a score prediction, I like Indiana by a touchdown.
Yeah, my favorite stat of that game is Indiana forced 2 turnovers, but also 6 sacks on Dante Moore.
Yeah, you got to get him on the ground.
And he hadn't been sacked all year, right? Mm-hmm. Until that game.
Right.
And I real quick, who's the best player left in the college football playoff? Because I might think it's Ruben Bain for Miami, and he scares me.
I'm heavily biased because he wrecked Notre Dame in week 1. But, Ruben Bain I would put certainly up there. Obviously, Fernando Mendoza you would put high up there as well.
But of the 4 teams, if you rank like the 20 best players, Indiana's probably got like 8 of them, don't they?
I don't know. I'd have to look.
They got a lot of guys. You start talking about those wide receivers, some of the guys on defense, the Heisman Trophy winner, I'll bet you they got at least 6 or 7 of the top 20.
Probably. I don't know. I actually don't know. But I just want to say that real quick because Ruben Bain, in my opinion, is the guy who scares me the most if Miami advances.
And a lot of people think
IU would face
top 10-ish sort of pick potentially for
that
him.
dude, oh boy.
Yeah.
Well, one thing, you get the 4 best teams in college football. There's going to be a lot of talent on that field tonight and tomorrow night. There's no question about that. All right. Also, the Pacers playing tonight in Charlotte against the Hornets. They're trying to snap a 13-game losing streak. Just talked to Scott Agnes about that. And how do they get this done tonight, Kevin? What needs to happen? Is it just not turning the ball over? Is it for once and for all not allowing that crucial second half run that other teams seem to have been getting during this entire losing streak? What do they do?
I mean, yes, certainly. And I also think you have to take advantage of the second night of the back-to-back. Charlotte played last night an excruciating loss. For those that didn't see it, LaMelo Ball hits a layup that looked to be the game winner. Emmanuel quickly for the Raptors comes down the other end, bangs home a 3 for the win right at the buzzer. So, do you need to run them in? I get the Charlotte's maybe the younger team, blah, blah, blah. But no, I mean, can you kind of run them into the ground a little bit as you have had the day off? And we'll see about Brandon Miller's status. He did not play last night, was thought to be playing, and then late scratch at the knee injury. So is he available tonight? All
right. If you missed it last night, doubleheader in the Big Ten on TV. The only 2 games played in the Big Ten last night. In the first one, Indiana beat Maryland 84-66. Lamar Wilkerson had 24 points. Tatum Connerway, 19 points, 8 boards. Connor Enright had 16 points. Reed Bailey had 15 points, 6 rebounds. Text line likes your Joe Dirt depiction of Enright.
Tell you what, Joe Dirt, and he can play a little. He's scrappy, and he started to hit a couple open shots, which I think is really important. Wilkerson and DeVries are going to get so much attention, naturally so. That allows Tatum Connerway to, be more of a scorer. And again, Connor Enright, I thought on both ends was really key. I know Wilkerson had that flurry there in the second half that really broke the game open, but I thought Connor Enright was really key. So first true road win of the season for Indiana. Miles Rice, 2 points in 15 minutes against his former team. And now Indiana and Purdue both really enter a gauntlet. I believe Indiana, 7 of their next 8 fall into that quad 1 opportunity. Purdue will have Penn State this weekend, and then they start to get much more difficult. I think they've got that West Coast trip coming up next week.
Yeah, until I was watching the game last night, I had totally forgotten that Rice was back on Maryland now. So crazy stuff.
Welcome to college sports.
Yeah. Number 5, Purdue winning last night at home. They beat Washington 81-73. Braden Smith, honored before the game as the Big Ten's all-time assist leader, scored 23 points, had 7 assists, did get into early foul trouble, did turn the ball over 6 times. But what I love about great players in Braden Smith, not his best game, but he still was a big contributor.
Exactly. And there's probably nobody I would trust more when you get into those big moments, big games, just considering the level of experience that he's had. And boy, will he be missed when he's gone, which makes this season all the more interesting and exciting considering what's at stake for this program.
And a big Indiana player playing for UConn right now had a big night last night too, Kevin Bowen.
Yeah, Braylon Mullins outstanding. One of the better games in college basketball last night was UConn and Providence. UConn coming back to win that game. Braylon Mullins, 24 points, 6 3-pointers.
I will say I am so glad I got to see him last year when it only cost like $8.
That's
an
the great
NBA
part
player
about
right there.
Indiana sports.
Hey, man, there's always somebody going to the league. I've seen a couple of those pipe players this year. Those are probably some future NBA players as well over there being coached by Jeff Teague.
All right, that wraps up the check down right now. Coming up in a moment, a fun look at Fernando Mendoza and Indiana football as they get ready to play the semifinal tomorrow night. We'll do it next at 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. the song shooting back up the streaming list on just about every streaming service this past year. I point out again that Indiana's alumni base is the largest in the country, James, of any school anywhere. It's the largest alumni base in the country. And this song
true?
Again, it is true. Look it
I
up.
feel like every university says that, but I wouldn't doubt it when it comes to IU.
It's true, and we've been hearing this song, and it's become kind of attached to Fernando Mendoza again. And as he gets ready for the semifinal football game tomorrow night against Oregon, he was asked his thoughts on the ABBA song from the 70s, Fernando.
Do you have any thoughts on NFL team fan bases that are singing that song, hoping that you're drafted by them?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great song by ABBA. I've heard it, a little throughout my high school career, and then, early in my college career. It was kind of like a joke with all my friends. And now it just accelerated to a whole nother level. So, I mean, I bet if ABBA was checking their phone, wow, this song's getting a lot of plays all of a sudden. So, I mean, it's great. I think it's, a funny, fan song, not like a fan song, but a funny song that everybody could rally around, especially IU fandom. And yeah, I always.
Whether he's talking about that or dinosaurs or whatever it is, how do you not like this kid? How can you possibly not like Fernando Mendoza and root for him as just a person and a player?
Well, I'll tell you, if you're Oregon and you're on the other side, I hate him. I don't want to see him succeed. I will say this. In addition to the song he just referenced, someone asked him if he has a hype song for games, and he said he doesn't listen to music. He just talks to God. And I was like, boy, that would terrify me if I'm an opponent. Huh? You don't listen to music? I talk to God about what I'm going to do to you guys. That's pretty crazy.
I saw an Oregon fan account that suggested the best way to stop Fernando Mendoza is in the middle of the game, ask him to give him his thoughts on the latest dinosaur discovery and might get a delay of game because he goes into his speeches on those things, man. But no, Kevin, it's just we talk about what a great story it is, but he's a different cat, and I love that. I just love that he's authentically himself, no apologies.
1,000%. I think he's one of the more unique individuals that we've had in college football, and obviously when you couple his play, it just adds to the story. I was at a wedding a few weeks back. It was an IU man marrying an Ohio State woman, and we had the ABBA Fernando song played at the wedding, so I think the groom got a little fortunate there on the old musical choices. But, yeah, I'm going to guess, is ABBA still performing?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know if they are.
It's been a hell of a run. Maybe a little 500 this year. You can get ABBA in Dunn Meadow or the tailgate fields there to perform.
Oh, man. This is one thing I will tell you about Fernando Mendoza. We all know about his Heisman Trophy winner. Against the AP Top 25 when he's played this year, he's averaging almost 73% completion percentage against the best teams in the country.
That's his thing, accuracy. And the old why I oughta when he's running, and I'm just like, get down. So I'm very curious to see what his legs will do in that game and how that could flip the game tomorrow when it comes to the Oregon matchup.
Yeah, and again, a crazy stat. I know he only threw the ball 16 times, but he had more touchdown passes than incompletions in the last game.
Well, and he's had several of those games this season, if I'm not mistaken. Obviously, doing it against Alabama is a different story. And, I'll keep on coming back to this point, and I hope I'm not just kind of beating a dead horse, but for those that haven't been totally plugged into us, and hell, for those that are maybe on the road right now to the ATL, I think a huge advantage for Indiana in preparation. This is one of the more chaotic weeks in college football, whether you're still playing or not. The portal is pure chaos, pure and utter chaos. And
what do you mean? It seems very calm for Washington and the player that they want, who asks to be let out of his contract that he signed, and you got people trying to sue universities and vice versa. It's great.
It is utter chaos. And you have Indiana with staff retention. Their offensive coordinator is going nowhere. He just re-signed. Their defensive coordinator is going nowhere. He just re-signed. So their prep is all in on the second meeting with the Oregon Ducks. Whereas out in Oregon, you have their offensive coordinator, Will Stein, is the new head coach at Kentucky. So Will Stein has literally been going back and forth. Can you imagine flights from Lexington to Eugene? Don't think that's probably the easiest trek, but that's the reality for him. And you want to talk about portal chaos, Kentucky's had some of the most. Notre Dame quarterback Kenny Menchie, who almost was the starter, CJ Carr beat him out. He initially committed to Nebraska in the portal, and next thing you know, he's now a Kentucky Wildcat. So for Will Stein, the OC for Oregon, who will be the play caller tomorrow night, he's juggling both. Their defensive coordinator, Tosh Lupo, he is juggling both as well. He is the new coach at Cal here. So I think that is another massive advantage for Indiana. Their coaching staff all in on the Peach Bowl and playing a week from Monday in Miami, whereas the Oregon staff, I mean, inevitably, guys, let's be honest. James Boyd, you weren't born yesterday. If you're Will Stein and you sit there in your office and think, I have this job potentially for another 48 hours. I have the next job for potentially the next 5 years. Should I watch 30 more minutes of Bryant Haynes' third down blitz packages, or should I watch portal film on potentially adding to my new job? Which one you going to choose?
Got to go portal.
Because that's your job now.
Yep.
So that is advantage Indiana, in my opinion.
You'd think so. I also just wanted to point out one last thing on Fernando Mendoza. The last time I saw him in person, 22 of 24 for 299 yards against Wisconsin. I was down there and watched that game. And,
well, it sounds like you need to be in Atlanta tomorrow night.
I know, man. Let's go.
You're the good luck charm.
But yeah, I mean,
is John Harbaugh going to view Fernando Mendoza as, I think I want the Raiders job? Is Fernando Mendoza that type of prospect?
Do you want, maybe, or do you, if you're John Harbaugh, do you say, hey, I like what Jackson Dart brought the Giants this year. I like that too.
I don't think he's that type of prospect because I will admit it's probably sort of a down year when it comes to the Heisman Trophy and the top quarterbacks. No disrespect to Fernando Mendoza. I think he could be a fine NFL quarterback, but he doesn't appear to be like the slam dunk that was, for example, Joe Burrow or even Lamar Jackson was a late first-round pick, but guys who had really, I think, put it on other teams when it comes to the Heisman numbers and the producing and stuff like that. But it certainly is a factor that I think could help. You know, if you're the incoming coach and you get to pick your next franchise quarterback potentially, yeah, that's a factor.
The other thing that I'm always amazed at when you look at Fernando Mendoza, you see the goofy kid-like nature that he has, which I love, and I've fallen in love with that part of his personality and what he brings, and the fact that his teammates love him and that he's just himself authentically. Like, we forget he's a big dude with a strong arm. He's 6'5", 225, and he can sling the rock.
Yeah, you know, we had Dane Brugler on, I think. Well, I don't know. Maybe we didn't have Dane on, but like Fernando Mendoza was thought to be a draft prospect entering this season. Like, this is not the most foreign thought in the world. Now, number 1 overall pick and Heisman Trophy winner, that's obviously in a different stratosphere. But I mean, you know, to go back to last year, honestly, it might have been a benefit for Indiana losing to Notre Dame in that they were able to ink up Fernando Mendoza on Christmas Eve from a portal standpoint. And Georgia was thought to be the other team, really. And Georgia was still in the playoff. They were getting ready to play Notre Dame in the Sugar Bowl. And Georgia still had the awkward Carson Beck, Stetson Bennett thing. You know, they're kind of, well, you can't. I mean,
Gunnar Stockton, I think.
Sorry, Gunnar Stockton. Thank you. You know, that it was just awkward for them. And obviously, it played out where Carson Beck then went to Miami and Gunnar Stockton is their quarterback here. So, you know, that was a benefit. And, you know, obviously we've seen this year. Indiana's gotten the kid from TCU, and you don't pay a dude $4 million not to start next year, right? So
it's
what
crazy.
does that mean for Alberto Mendoza?
You know, even before this year of craziness with transfer portals and things like that, when you look at quarterbacks who have transferred schools just even in the last decade, that whole, there's almost a vortex of Ohio State, Oklahoma, Alabama, Georgia, and now to think that Indiana has been a part of that with Georgia figuring out what to do, and Fernando Mendoza ends up coming here. The quarterback situation, even before the portal nonsense that we've seen the last 2 years, it's always been crazy, it seems, in the last decade.
Well, and this tweet from Zach Osterman right now, they're having their final press conference down there in Atlanta, said both coaches asked about contract enforceability. Might as well label the Washington quarterback for the reason that question is being asked. Osterman tweeted here, neither coach wants to engage much. But Signetti does offer. Obviously, there's a lot of loose ends that needs to be tied up in the whole recruiting process.
Yeah. If you're a head coach,
I think that's the most politically correct way the day before the game to say this is utter chaos. And even though my program is benefiting from it immensely, we need to figure it out.
And not only that, this is one of those things, anything you say or do can be used against you in the future. You don't want to say anything publicly right now that could come back to haunt you if you're in the midst of some kind of contract dispute in the next couple of years too, Kevin.
Legal team's right around the corner, right?
Don't say anything. That's what every lawyer
I do
always
find it
tells
funny,
you.
though, that, again, a lot of coaches will talk a big game and then pivot as soon as it benefits them. For example, the Texas coach, Sarkisian, he went on the Pivot podcast and said if a Texas player enters the portal, they can't come back. And then I just saw a Texas defensive back come back to the university after going to the portal. So it all depends on how relatively good you are. You're a great player. You go to the portal, and we want you to come back, and you say, you know what? I think I do like Texas, and I want to raise to come back to Texas. They'll have you. You liar.
All right, final thoughts coming up in just a moment here as we continue to wrap up a Thursday Chris Ballard press conference on the way at 11 o'clock, and we'll tell you more about that next at 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Every day I'm hustling, 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 every day I'm
We've been talking about the college football playoff all morning long, obvious reasons, and the Chris Ballard press conference coming up at 11 o'clock. I know we had a doubleheader for basketball last night. Kevin, with all the things going on in your house and 3 kids now and college basketball, do you have time to even watch anything other than just sports at this point in time? Do you and Maddie ever sit down and just watch a TV show of any kind?
Do you have a life, Kevin? Like,
Yeah.
seriously.
Oh, no,
like,
I say that as a guy, Caleb, I say that as a guy who's been there. I know what he's going through.
Hey, I'm right there with him. I shouldn't be throwing rocks.
Dude, when you have 3 kids under 4, correct, or 5?
Yeah, Rosie's 5.
5? 3 kids under 5, and you're doing what he does, and it's still football season until certainly this press conference comes today, and you're watching college basketball, and you have this job, and you got to keep up with everything. It's tough to do other things, isn't it? That's why I was so impressed with your staycation.
Suck it up.
Love this job.
I've been there.
Very lucky to have this job.
Yeah.
So, yeah, let me make that abundantly clear. And, yeah, I wake up every
Man, they
morning.
doing brain surgery. You turn on the mic. You'll
Really
be all
enjoying
right.
it.
My
Thank you.
point being,
Thank you, James.
Shout out Maddie for holding down
I'm
the Bowen
just asking
household.
if you've had a chance to watch anything other than sports.
Yeah,
with
to
Maddie.
answer your question, there's not a lot of rom-coms that we're dialing up in the Bowen
expand
household.
your mind a little bit, man.
What about you,
Right now
James?
here.
As a single guy, what have you been watching lately?
I watched Landman finish season 2. I think it's over. It might be that show's all over the place. I think season 2 has not been as good as season 1. Finished Pluribus on Apple TV, and yeah, life is great when you don't have any kids.
So I bring that up because this week I just started
Hit me
watching.
up, Kevin. I'm telling you,
Yeah,
I
there
will
you go.
babysit in a heartbeat. The blowouts, I might have
what
to
you
call
want.
you to figure out how I get through the blowout, but I'm up for a challenge.
The reason I asked that, and you brought up Pluribus, I started watching that this week. I'm 4 episodes in. That's a freaky show. Those first couple episodes are freaky, man.
Wild show makes you think, and I have to pay attention in that show for sure. But as far as what will be on the TV tonight and other nights throughout the rest of the weekend, it will be all sports.
Yeah, there's a big sports weekend coming up. We've talked about the college football semifinals. And then, of course, playoff time. Playoff time for the National Football League. And you've got 2 games on Saturday, 2 on Sunday. Or we got 3 on Sunday, right? What is that? I know you got 1 on Monday night.
2-3-1.
2-3-1, yeah. So, yeah, just settle into the old easy chair. And I may have to watch one of those games as well on the exercise bike if I'm going to get anything done with that.
You guys got a
this weekend.
favorite wild card weekend game?
I will be at now it's not going to be the best game, but I'll be at the Carolina and Rams game.
Wow.
What a flex.
Okay.
Well, no, only because
Nice.
one of the other stations.
Just out Monday,
Yeah,
Tuesday.
right. He's stunting on us.
Charlotte.
Y'all ain't
is
going to
one
a
of-
playoff game, Indianapolis, but I am.
Charlotte is one of the other markets that I consult and go see, and so I thought, well, I'm going to be there next Monday and Tuesday anyway. I'll just go earlier and go to the playoff game.
Yeah.
Right?
You know, he had to go consult and see, and then he had to go a little early. Yeah, I get it. You're 2 birds, 1 stone. You're a smart man. The game I'm looking
You
most
guys are
forward to.
impossible, and I love that.
The game I'm looking forward to the most is probably Bills Jaguars. Because Bills, I think you have the best player in the playoffs in Josh Allen. And then the Jaguars have been playing better football than them over the last month or so. So that should be a good one.
I was going to say, James, I heard somebody put it like this. Has there ever been a 6 seed in the history of the NFL with more pressure on them than the
good
Buffalo
point.
Bills? It's hard to pinpoint that. And, yeah, there's a lot on the line there.
And I do want to know, feel free to weigh in, guys. Should I make the drive home to watch this game with my family? Bears, Packers.
Or you either got to watch it with your dad or Mark.
Because like my dad isn't a Bears fan. He loves to see
You
the
should
Bears
have Mark
lose,
take
actually.
Mark with you.
But I'm like, boy, my uncle and my cousins and the rest of my family, they're like, they will be in the Caleb Williams jerseys. They will have the cheese grater hats on. And boy, if they win or lose, it will be must-see TV for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I think so many of these games are compelling. I think a sneaky one for me is Sunday night. And that's Chargers is the 7, at New England is the 2. You know, when we talk AFC quarterbacks, are we now officially talking Drake May? Are we officially talking Justin Herbert? Or is it still Allen, Burrow, Mahomes, Lamar, and the tier? You know, like, you know, Herbert and Drake May, they're knocking on that door. And if one of them all of a sudden are playing, 2 weeks from Sunday, then they're really knocking on that door. So
Yeah.
I think that's a great one. And obviously Pittsburgh. I mean, James, you pointed out several times their losing streak. I mean, Pittsburgh is a home underdog. in the postseason here. Does Aaron Rodgers have any magic left? And, Houston with that defense and everything. So I can't wait. I mean, again, it starts tonight. I mean, you look at all of these games, the 2 games tonight, the 2 semifinal games the next 2 nights, and then all these playoff games, I believe every single one, but the game you're at, Jeff, is a 5-point or less spread.
I think that one's 10.5.
You're the big one with the Rams being the big road favorite there, but everything else is right there, like right around a field goal. And so, that's pretty unique, I think. And so I can't wait to get it all started.
So the one game nobody's mentioned that I'm really looking forward to is San Francisco at Philadelphia.
Yeah, that's another great one.
I think San Francisco's finally healthy.
That's our 4:30 right on Sunday?
Yeah, 4:30. And here's the thing. We talk about how injuries have derailed the Colts all season long, right? Nobody had more injuries on offense than the San Francisco 49ers this year. And that's the reason they're a 6 seed. And they're playing lately like a top 3 or 4 seed. It's going to be really interesting to see what they do on the road against Philadelphia.
I love it because we get so hyperbolic. If you win this weekend, everything's possible. You lose this weekend, everyone should be gone.
Yeah, John Harbaugh should be your head coach. That's probably how a lot of teams view it. Shout out to the Michaelis Corporation, broken water heater at the Bowen household, broken water softener. They were out ASAP yesterday to get some fans going. I feel like I'm living in those windmills off of 65 right now. But hey, if they're drying up all my watery carpet and watery toys and suitcases and everything, thank you for that.
Yeah, Michaelis has helped us out before in the past too. That's a great company to go check out if you unfortunately need their services. They're the right folks to call. It's going to wrap it up for us. Chris Ballard comes your way at 11 o'clock. That's the scheduled start time of the press conference. We'll carry some of that. Then reaction from Jake at noon.